Hey everyone. Welcome back for the 5th part of Escape to Kumo. As always, huge thanks to all of my Patreons. Making these videos would be impossible without you guys' support, especially with all the restrictions YouTube places on my type of content. As always, the full story is already out over there for you guys along with about 30 other different stories you can enjoy. Also, feel free to send me any messages over there if you have any questions or even if you just want to chat. Link to all of that will be in the description. Anyways, everyone, enjoy the video. Konoha Council. 1 week later, Fugaku didn't know whether to be happy or angry at the news Jiraiya recently shared with him. Orochimaru was supposed to be his kill. Orochimaru was his prey, and he should have been the one to end him. His Uchiha pride demanded that he end the one responsible for killing his family. He wanted to look the snake in his eyes and enjoy the life leaving those snaky orbs. Of course, he had his shinobi looking for the snake and hunting him since the Chunin exams, but they had no luck. There was also the fact that he had lost over 40 shinobi in those recon missions into Rice Country. Then there was the matter of who killed him. If reports were to be believed, then it was Uzumaki Naruto, Rutomaki, leader of the Divine Bolts. The root shinobi in the area reported supernatural storms unlike any they had ever seen and eagles occupying the darkened skies. The battle left scars on the land and the pictures of the remains of Orochimaru's labs were jarring. To think that the boy, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, had grown that strong. That should have been his asset. It should have been his loyal weapon. That boy belonged to Konoha and the damned Uzumaki woman stole him. To make matters worse, that same Uzumaki woman made Kumo into a terrifying threat that felt nearly insurmountable. To make matters worse, 3 of his targets were in that country and it made the task he accepted seem terrifyingly daunting. Fugaku tabled his thoughts as he sat down into his Hokage seat in the council chambers. Jiraiya, Danzo, Homura and Koharu were standing behind him and they took their seats next. The shinobi and civilian council sat next, and they all looked expectantly at Fugaku. I have called this meeting today because Jiraiya has provided a report that is relevant to the safety of Konoha. Jiraiya, if you would share what you found. Fugaku spoke in a disciplined monotone. Jiraiya, fresh off another bender, stepped forward and spoke in an uncertain manner. Well, the toads told me that the eagle summoning clan assaulted Ryuchi Cave. The white snake sage led. The eagles attacked Manda and his kin. Orochimaru and the Cobra tribe of the Snake Clan are dead. Other than that, Kumo made a decisive move on Orochimaru, and they took out at least 20 of his labs over the last week. Orochimaru retreated to the summoning realm to escape one of those attacks. If witnesses are to be believed, then it was the Eagle Clan and Inhuman Storms that did this, which means that it was Uzumaki Naruto. After some stirring from the council, Shikaku spoke, "Isn't this good news? The troublesome traitor of Konoha that attacked us a couple years ago is now dead. Why do you sound so morbid?" Fugaku coughed. The rise of Kumo and their alliance with Kiri, Wave and Uzushio makes them a threat we can no longer ignore. In addition, it appears as if they have made an official non-aggression treaty with Iwa. Inoiki spoke next. That is still not bad news. We knew we were falling behind Kumo and they have made no acts of aggression towards us. In fact, they took out one of our greatest enemies. Danzo clicked his cane on the ground. The problem is that Kumo is now too strong. It is only a matter of time until they turn their sights on us. Sume growled, "I am no fan of the Uzumaki boy, but I am not following. We have a non-aggression pact with Kumo that has gone pretty well. We have had minimal clashes on the border with them and even fewer overlapping missions." "What aren't you telling us, Hokage-sama?" Hyashi asked. "The Uzumaki boy avenged my fallen wife and daughter. I know their souls can rest easy now that the snake is in the ground." The civilian council had been watching this and also thinking similar things. They were glad that the traitor was dead and that he no longer posed a threat to the village. They hated the Uzumaki boy, but he had left the village well enough alone. They didn't understand the shinobi balance or how the scales of war were tipping. However, Mibuki would always back her husband. It was her duty as his trophy wife. "Dear, what are we missing? Clearly, you know something that we don't, and it is bothering you." Mibuki's naturally loud voice cut above the rest. Fugaku cleared his throat, actually surprised that the Haruno woman was useful for once. On the surface, this looks like a good thing. However, it is upsetting the power balance too greatly. Kumo is too great of a power now, and with 3 of the major 4 daimyo on its side, it is only a matter of time until they turn their sights on us. Shikaku cocked his head to the side. "Why would they? We have done nothing, and they have done nothing. I understand the board being set for a stalemate, but what possible reason would they have to attack us?" The Uzumaki's grudge. Danzo growled out for Fugaku. "If their power is so much greater than ours, then I will likely destroy us to appease them. That does not compute. If I wanted us dead, then he could have joined the invasion and tipped the scales, Inoki said. There is something else going on here. Homura stepped forward. The balance of power is disrupted, and we are going to the court of daimyo to get the Kyuubi Jinchuriki back. Hiruzen scoffed loudly. Oh, so that is why you are upset. You think the daimyo will agree to hand the boy over? Is he even the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki anymore? Do you have your facts set? Fugaku pounded his fist on the desk. The Uzumaki woman is a traitor, and her son is the rightful property of Konoha. This is the only route that doesn't lead to direct war. Hiruzen crossed his arms and let the council speak for him. Sure enough, Hiashi spoke up. Hokage-sama, on the contrary, this route will likely lead us to war. Making demands of Kumo when they have placed such high value on the Uzumaki family will necessitate a war. Furthermore, if Iwagakure has been revived, then it is likely that Kushina is the leader. That would make her a daimyo and Kage in her own right. Your play at punishing her will only backfire because the daimyo are each trying to curry her favor to gain access to her seals. Koharu stepped forward. We must succeed. Konoha was the one that distributed the biju to establish the balance of power. The treaty that the villages signed by Hashirama have maintained the power of balance for the past century. Kumo has no rights to our weapon. Hiruzen laughed and fiddled with his prosthetic arm. Let's say that is true. What is the likelihood that Kumo will concede to your demand? The boy is the heir apparent to the Raikage, and the man sees him as his own son. Kumo idolizes the family, and they have the support of the lightning daimyo. Regardless, Fugaku shouted, if we let the current situation play itself out, then it ends with the fall of Konoha. Inaction cannot be tolerated. Shikaku groaned, weren't we going to attempt negotiation with Uzushio? Why skip that and go to the daimyo's court? I agree with Shikaku, we should negotiate directly with them rather than risk this matter in the daimyo's court, Inoki said, and Kuza nodded. Why can't we just leave the boy alone? Or at the very least have someone assassinate him? Otaru, a civilian counselor that Brown knows the Uchiha, asked. Danzo answered this, we have already said that leaving the situation alone is untenable. The boy is now firmly in those ranks, and it makes assassination nearly impossible. Then, allow us to take a team to wave and request negotiations. We were friends with Kushina, and she should grant us an audience, Hiashi said. She was close with my wife, which is likely another reason that her son attacked Orochimaru. She lost her two closest friends during the invasion. Shikaku perked up, let us try diplomacy first. We cannot afford a war. We have not recovered from the invasion and war would put us against Kumo, Kiri and possibly Uzu. Fugaku sighed, let's take this to a vote. Keep in mind that Kumo has shinobi stationed in Wave and Wave is a protectorate of Kumo. Rumors say the daimyo is in a relationship with somebody prominent from Kumo as well. Family time. After Naruto's assault on Ryuchi Cave and the death of Orochimaru, he reappeared at the reverse summoning beacon in the Maki compound. He was passed out in bed within hours, and he slept for 2 days straight without so much as flinching awake. Kushina had brought almost every battle-ready shinobi she had to join Kumo in cleaning up Orochimaru's labs. While that was ongoing, Kushina and the rest of Naruto's girls attended to him, but he was just out like a light for 2 whole days. When Naruto shifted awake, he awoke surrounded by curtains of red hair. The Uzumaki girls had undone the chakra dye when they returned to Iwagakure, and the lustrous red hair now coated his chest. He felt Ria snuggled in closely to his right and he could feel her baby bump pressing into his side. She was somewhere around 5 months pregnant now and he was excited for the first of the Uzumaki children to be born on Uzu. Karen was on his left and his clumsy researcher was drooling on the left side of his chest. He appreciated them both and placed tender kisses on each of their foreheads. Of course, this action stirred them awake and they didn't waste time asking if he was okay. His performance in the session to follow would be all the proof needed that he was okay. Naruto enjoyed ravaging Karen and making love to Rias. Despite Ria's protest, he couldn't go all out when she was pregnant. That being said, he enjoyed her heavenly warmth, and he made her very happy while making sure not to give his son or daughter head trauma from repeated blows to the still-forming cranium. While the two were recovering from an hour-long session, Naruto hopped into the shower to clean off. It was only then that he noticed when he was going through the process of rinsing off his tails. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 4 was ticklish. 5, wait. 5. Naruto spun around and chased his tails in excitement before Hikari's giggles broke him out of that instinctive action. He walked calmly to the mirror and had his blonde tails wrap around his torso. He counted the 5 white tips and couldn't stop the gigawatt smile from breaking out over his face. The smile reflecting in the mirror made Hikari's heart skip a beat and she was more than excited. His growth had been so accelerated. He repeatedly surpassed her wildest hopes for him, and she was ready to truly jump his bones. They were already mated for life and the weddings were coming soon. She had no delusions of being fully released in time, but she knew that truly didn't matter. If he continued at this rate, then she would be fully released by the time her mating cycle arrived. That was what truly mattered to her. Naruto's cheers drew the girls into the bathroom, including Kushina. When he turned around and showed them his tails, it took him a minute for the group of women to get it, but when they did. Holy Kami! Ruto! Rias cheered. Kushina shook her head with a big goofy grin. Sochi! Congratulations! Yay! More tails to cuddle with. Maya squealed like a fangirl. Karen remained quiet and composed, but she had a contented smile on her face as she leaned against the doorway. Congrats, Ruto. I am not surprised after the fight you had. She is right, Ruto. The amount of demonic chakra you use spurred this forward. I thought you were away from your fifth tail, but your sage training and your rage made you pull on some of my power. Regardless, you earned it. Congrats my love. Hikari said through the mind link. Naruto scratched the back of his neck sheepishly. Thanks ladies. Hey, where is Tuya? Kushina smiled softly. She is on bedrest. I removed her curse seal yesterday and it took quite a bit out of her. Naruto nodded at that and gave his mom a grateful smile. Thanks, Kachan. I was so mad when I saw that seal on her. The rest of it was all a blur as my rage took over. Where are Mabui, Samui, Itachi and Amy? They and the rest of the Jonin are cleaning up the remains of Iwagakure. We were hired by the Rice Daimyo to do it. He didn't want that many missing nin running around his country. He was mighty grateful to you, by the way, Ruto, Kushina said merrily. Kitsumbi stuck his head into the room with a tired look on his face. What was all that noise about? He asked while yawning. Naruto got his fifth tail, Rias said proudly while latching onto Naruto's arm. Kitsumbi's eyes widened. Oh, wow. That's impressive. How old are you again? 16. Naruto replied simply. 5 tails in 16 years, Kitsumbi muttered in disbelief, which made Hikari laugh out loud in the mindscape. She would have come out, but Naruto's body was still recovering. Naruto joined the family for breakfast before going to the Raikage's office with Kushina. He had to check in with his master and give him an update. It had been quite a while since he checked in with the Raikage and there was quite a bit that he would have to update him on. Thus, Naruto, his blood clone, Kushina, Yugito, Daru and Kairo were gathered in the office for a meeting. Naruto explained his sage training to them, and he explained exactly what happened in the summoning realm. So, the Great White Sage just let you fight Orochimaru, Manda and the Cobra tribe? I asked in disbelief. Yo, the snakey didn't want to catch hands, it was clear who was the man. Sage or no, nobody messes with Ruto, B said in his arrhythmic rap. This made the room laugh while I buried his head in his hands. Naruto chuckled, yeah, well, evidently the Eagles beat the snakes in 2 of the past wars. The Eagles had abstained from participating in wars for the past 200 years, but they were more than willing to rally behind me. That's my Sochi. Kushina beamed. I nodded and continued, so, there is no war between the Eagles and snakes? Naruto nodded. Okay, good. Now, what is the update on Makai? Naruto shrugged, I had a clone team working on my dad's notes. We are not to a production stage yet, but it shouldn't take too long to get to the first test phase. It also gave me a good idea for my Hiraishin that may enable me to travel across countries. Every leaned in for this one, but it was Kushina that was most excited. Well, spill it. That would mean you could come to New Uzu more often. Naruto nodded and offered a smile. Well, the beacon component in my father's notes is strong enough to feel through dimensions. I was thinking, maybe I can make stronger beacon tags that I can leave in each of my main locations. Kushina nodded and got into a thinking pose. Okay, so you put more power into the beacon so you can feel it from further away. Makes sense. How will it affect the formula? Naruto shrugged, the formula is a 3-layered seal already. I could just alter the beacon/summoning seal and make it bigger. I have a clone team on it, and I will be bringing a test with me when we go to Uzu for the weddings. Daru shook his head, you just keep redefining the line between possible and impossible. It's what the Uzumaki do. Kushina chirped excitedly while smiling broadly. I kept the conversation moving forward. Speaking of the wedding, how exactly are we going to do that? There isn't really a template for marrying 7 women at once. Yugito scoffed, that isn't even including the Uzumaki girls. Geez, Ruto, if I didn't know what a great guy you were, I would have used Nibi's power to castrate you on behalf of the women of the world. B held one hand over his crotch and used the other to add motion to his rapping. Hey, little kitty, don't be like that, Ruto will put you on the mat. Ruto isn't the one to blame, all the ladies hold in the flame. My boy didn't ask for it, it just happened that the ladies are smit. Naruto chuckled, thanks, B. I appreciate the backup. As for the wedding sensei, Hikari will take the lead and will answer the vows on behalf of the ladies. After the vows, we will adhere to Uzumaki tradition and offer our blood to the whirlpool. Kushina nodded proudly, that is right. Adding them to the main whirlpool will make the island recognize them. If their love isn't pure, then the whirlpool will consume them, or so legend states. That's not morbid. Daru muttered. Crazy Uzumakas. Yugito followed it up. I clapped his hands, good. Sounds good. The invites have been sent out and we are set to televise the wedding for Kumo, Lightning Capital, and Wave. Kushina, are the hotels up and running on the island? Yup. Kushina answered simply and elaborated when Every looked at her expectantly. The sailor hotels have been up and running for a while. The luxury hotels are ready for the dignitaries. With the business out of the way, when will my girls be coming home? Naruto asked. Cleanup in Oto is scheduled to take 2 weeks. Your girls are leading squads and taking out the remaining hidden bases, I said. Daru added, each time we find one base, there are more locations discovered. The snake had so many damned bases it is unbelievable. Naruto nodded, okay, well, that's good, I guess. I was just hoping to see them, I laughed, it's just a couple of weeks, Ruto. You went away for almost 4 months. Why not go to Uzu and check in on Tsunami and Inari while you are at it? Naruto sighed, yeah, okay. So, I am free to roam for a while? I nodded, sure thing. Take the time to get the beacon done and work on that teleporter. If we can get those 2 done, then we are closer to achieving your goals. Plus, the Kitsune would be some additional firepower. Naruto cut that off, it will most likely be the other way around, sensei. The situation over there didn't sound great. That being said, it is still one of my priorities. For now, I will go to Uzu and get some dedicated seal work in. When the beacons are ready, I will drop them off to our allies. I nodded, very well. Keep your communication scroll on you and be ready for any summons. Naru is holding things down well in the office for the time being. Naruto cocked his head to the right in question, Naru? Karu laughed, it is what we have taken to calling the blood clone. Since your nickname is Ruto, we figured the blood clone could just go by Naru. Naruto locked eyes with his blood clone who simply shrugged and winked at him. Naruto shook his head, he had evidently missed that during the last memory transfer. Whatever works. I am going to pack up and head out. I will fly the girls back to New Uzu. You coming, Kachan? Wave Country, Tsunami. 2 weeks after Orochimaru's defeat, Tsunami carried baby Kaisa with her as she walked through her town, her country. It was still surreal for her to realize that these were officially her people. It was super helpful to have backing from Kirinji, I and Kushina when it came to being named the leader, but she was already ready to hand off the official title to Kushina. She wanted to help Kushina govern over Wave, but the title of daimyo didn't feel right to her. She looked down at the sleeping boy that was resting in the swaddle she wore. He was almost a year old, and he had really developed. She loved his sun-kissed blonde hair that had the ocean blue tips. It was the perfect combination of his father and herself. The angelic baby face was so content while he was sleeping that it filled her heart with joy. She adjusted the swaddle carrier a bit on her shoulders and looked up into the town. Ushio village was fully recovered from Gato. The buildings were new and pristine, there were 3 active ports, and the town was bustling with life and activity. She walked past 2 Kumo shinobi who bowed reverently to her, which she returned in kind. They idolized Naruto, and every Kumo shinobi that went through a rotation in Wave treated her with the same respect that they gave Naruto. It was yet another thing that Tsunami was grateful to her blonde stud for. Thinking of Naruto still made Tsunami blush. That young man had been such a blessing on her family and country. He readily stepped into the father role for Inari, and he blessed her with Kaisa. Rather than act like some sperm donor, he has incorporated her into his family, and she couldn't ask for any more. His tender touch, loving eyes and protective nature made Tsunami thank Kami for him multiple times a day. His messages made her chest tighten and heart swell, and she couldn't remember ever being this happy in her life. The Uzumaki women each spoiled her like crazy, and Kushina regularly stopped by to check in on her. It helped that the island was only 2 hours away by boat, but it was still unexpected and greatly appreciated. The alliance with Uzushio was give and take, but Tsunami was fully willing to admit that Wave got more of the benefits. The protective seals, the increased business from the ports, the shinobi that were stationed on Wave. All of these things helped Wave prosper like never before, and the people of the island knew exactly who to thank. That being said, Wave citizens knew to keep their traps shut and lips tight when it came to interacting with the sailors. Wave went from an innocuous third world island to a central trading hub and high-value target in less than a year. Each person that entered Wave was screened by the shinobi with the help of SEALs, but that didn't mean that it was safe to talk in the open. As Naruto warned her, Wave had caught and released multiple spies in the past couple months after Naruto's identity was revealed, which served as the proof to his warning. Tsunami rounded the corner out of the market district while greeting her people and walked into the police station. She checked in with Shi regularly in order to stay on top of Wave's security. She walked past a group of 10 Kumo shinobi and their Wave apprentices and back into Shi's office. The blonde-haired man looked up from his paperwork and offered her a sincere smile. "Good morning, Tsunami-sama. How can I help you today?" he asked pleasantly. Tsunami huffed playfully. "First, you can stop with the sama nonsense. You know I don't like it. Second, I was just doing my rounds and wanted to know if there was anything I should be made aware of." She shrugged. "Caught a couple of spies from unknown nations yesterday trying to come in through the ports. They are being detained and questioned until the ship they arrived on has completed its trading. The emergency seals are up and effective on the bridge in each of the ports. Your police force has proven effective at screening newcomers and things are looking good." Tsunami nodded with a smile on her face. "Thanks for all of your assistance. I couldn't have done all this without you guys." Before she could respond, a Kumo Chunin from the patrols entered Shi's office and bowed to the two of them. Upon prodding, he gave his report. "Taiku, there are 9 Konoha shinobi at the bridge requesting an official audience with Tsunami-sama." She looked at Tsunami before looking back at the Chunin. "For what reason and were you able to identify them?" The Chunin nodded. "Inoiki Yamanaka, Kuza Akimichi and Shikaku Nara are leading the contingent. They are accompanied by their children as well as Hyashi, Hinata, and Neji Hyuga." She frowned. "That is an information extraction team if I have ever seen one. Did they state their purpose for the meeting?" The Chunin shifted nervously. "They say that they wish to use Tsunami-sama to gain a meeting with Lady Shina." Kumo shinobi still referred to Kushina in this way out of habit and as a matter of respect. Tsunami didn't like this. She didn't have a way to protect herself from such shinobi and even the garrison here would be hard-pressed to deal with such a team. "What should we do, Shi-san?" She was already writing a message on a scroll. "I will inform Lady Shina, Ruto and the Raikage first of all. Second, you should hand off baby Kaisa to your protective detail and get ready for an official proceeding." He then turned to address the Chunin. "You will have them wait in the inn on the fire country side of the bridge." Shukaku saw the same Chunin approaching the guard post alone and he knew that things were going to be troublesome. He informed the group to stay calm and let him handle things, which really wasn't a problem for them. "I am sorry for the wait, Nara-san. Daimyo-sama requests that you wait at the inn on the fire country side of the bridge. A representative will be out to speak with you shortly." The Kumo Chunin said. "Why can't we wait in the city? We watched a bunch of merchants go past us on the bridge." Ino chimed into the conversation despite the fierce look from her father. Inoiki spoke up. "I apologize for my daughter's rudeness, but I would like to know the answer to that as well. Konoha is on good terms with Wave, and it has a non-aggression pact with Kumo." The Chunin shifted uncomfortably. "My orders are to have you wait in the inn." Kuza beamed a smile and slapped a friendly hand on Inoiki's shoulder. "Let's not stir up trouble. We can grab a bite to eat and wait. We did drop in on them unannounced." His friendly attitude earned a grateful look from the Chunin and other Kumo shinobi manning the guard post. "I assure you that the relevant parties know that you are here, and you will get a prompt response." The Kumo Chunin answered before watching the Konoha group leave the bridge. "That's certainly not a good sign. They are treating us like adversaries already." Shikamaru spoke what everyone was thinking. Shikaku wore a thoughtful look on his face. "Well, it is likely that the Uzumaki clan has substantial pull in Wave. We may have a non-aggression pact, but that forgets what lies underneath the situation." "You mean that Ruto guy, right Dad?" Ino asked. "The guy that hurt Sasuke-kun." Shikamaru shook his head. "Ruto-san was in the right to execute Sasuke on the spot. The fact that he didn't showed self-restraint. His identity being revealed makes things make much more sense now though." Hyashi remained stoic as he walked. "Yes, it does offer insight. I still remember Kushina's plea for help. Hitomi never forgave me for denying her." Kuza frowned. "We were all told that she was exaggerating. We were all lied to. And then Naruto died, right?" Hinata asked the group. "That is what we believe," Shikaku said. "Which begs the question of how he is alive. There are too many unknowns to make sense of the situation." Elsewhere, Naruto and Kushina were looking at the scrolls and communicating with Ai on how best to handle things. Naruto was insistent on going and not leaving Tsunami to handle this alone. Kushina wanted to just go and get this over with. I was pleading for caution because he didn't wish for failure or an open declaration of war. All in all, they were split on what to do and they were trying to get it sorted. They expected an envoy at one point or another. Honestly, they expected it to come sooner than it did. That being said, they were still hiding a great many secrets from Konoha, and they were already making preparations to move against them. Kitsunebi's information that confirmed the Akatski missing nins working for Fugaku was more than enough reason to treat them as hostiles. Thus, Naruto made the decision that he would go and stand by Tsunami. He would play gate guard for his mother, and she would only meet with them if he deemed it safe. That led to a mid-afternoon meeting between Naruto Uzumaki and the Konoha messengers. He picked them up from the inn and laid out some ground rules. Any use of jutsu would be considered an act of hostility. Any activation of the Byakugan would be taken as an act of hostility. Any snooping or leaving the group would be taken as an act of hostility and cut off all future communication attempts. The Konoha group agreed, and they trailed the massive and intimidating form of Naruto Uzumaki. As they walked, everyone noticed the prosperity of Wave and the substantial safety measures that were in place. There were at least 3 barriers on the bridge they crossed. There was another guard post and defensive barrier on the Wave side of the bridge. There were buildings protected by seals that they had never seen before, and there was an obvious police and shinobi presence. One thing made itself clear to the Konoha group: they were expecting intruders and they were ready to handle them. So, Naruto-san, what can you tell us about Wave Country? Shikaku probed lightly. Naruto didn't even turn his head. He kept walking and answered the question. After our mission to eliminate Gato, Wave hired Kumo as a defense and training force. He kept his answer short, sweet and obvious. Ino stepped forward. Ruto-san, can you tell me why you left Konoha? The adults cringed at the question and Inoiki restrained the urge to facepalm. Other than dying? Ino nodded. No. Naruto answered harshly. So, you did die? Hiashi asked. Don't feel much like talking about it. You guys had my body in the morgue, did you not? Naruto answered. Then how are you back here, alive? Shikamaru asked with his mind racing at the implications. Naruto shrugged, it's a mystery. Everyone translated that too, I am not fucking telling you assholes. Shikaku sighed, I apologize for the rude questions. So, are you going to be partaking in the talks? Naruto nodded. In what capacity? Naruto shrugged. Do you consider us hostile? Naruto stopped walking and turned around with his poker face in full effect. You are a smart man, Shikaku-san. Do you believe it is polite, proper or decent to ask such a question directly? Everyone could feel the power starting to break free from the seals on the combat uniform Naruto was wearing. Kuza stepped forward to defuse the situation. He held up his hands and offered a disarming smile complete with pudgy eyes closed. We apologize, Naruto-san. You are a mystery, and you know how the Naras are with their puzzles. Naruto turned around and kept walking. He remained silent until they entered a beautiful building that was labeled Ushio Town Hall. Naruto guided them back to a conference room where 12 chairs were sat in front of a longer table that would normally contain Ushio's council. The Konoha group sat and noticed that the shinobi guarding the room didn't even bother hiding themselves. They also noticed that Naruto took a seat that would indicate he was Tsunami's equal. Thank you for waiting. Tsunami began politely. Your visit was unexpected, and I was busy with other duties. Welcome to Ushio Village, capital of Wave Country. Hiashi, the more familiar with official proceedings, spoke for the group and bowed. Thank you for having us, Tsunami Dono. We hope the recovery of your nation is going well. Tsunami offered a small smile, it is. So, how may I help the shinobi of Konoha? Hiashi slowly removed a scroll from his white silk kimono. We are here for 2 reasons. First, Konoha wishes to offer an alliance agreement. Second, we wish for you to organize a meeting between Konoha and the Uzumaki. Tsunami made a practiced motion with her hand and one of the shinobi walked forward. She was so out of her element that she was struggling to remember all of the formalities. She was grateful Naruto was here to assist her through the shinobi grabbed the official scroll with the seal of the Hokage on it and brought it to Naruto. Naruto inspected the scroll for traps before handing it to Tsunami. This action told the Konoha group a lot about the pecking order of things in Wave. Tsunami delayed reading the alliance scroll. I will have my council review this later and I will send a messenger with our response. As for Lady Shina, I will leave that to Naruto-kun to handle. Naruto nodded, what business do you have with my mother? His tone was perfectly balanced and professional, but it had just enough menace to make the shinobi choose their words carefully. Do you speak for Iwagakure, Uzumaki-san? Hiashi asked. No, my mother is capable of speaking for herself. Then, I believe it best for us to leave it at a request for a meeting, then. Declined. Naruto answered immediately. Why an immediate denial? Does she not wish for old alliances to benefit both countries? Hiashi asked. To what are you referring, Hyuga Dono? Naruto countered. Uzushio and Konoha are historical allies bonded by blood and marriage. Hiashi answered. It is mighty convenient to have selective memory, isn't it, Hyuga Dono? Naruto snapped back. Konoha has always honored the alliance with Uzushio. It is why we still bear your clan emblem, Hiashi said while struggling to maintain his professionalism. Do you believe that? Truly? Naruto asked. Yes, I do. Then you can leave. I have no tolerance for ignorant fools, Naruto said with finality. Uzumaki-san, please wait. We are friends of your mother. We only wish to speak with her to avoid the situation escalating, Kuza said out of turn. Akimichi-san, for the year that my mother requested your support while I was being beaten, what did the Akimichi clan do? Kuza's chin sunk to his chest. Naruto looked at the rest. The same question can be asked of each of you. If you have a good answer, I will entertain this conversation. If you have drivel, then you may leave now. Uzumaki-san, it wasn't as black and white as you make it seem. There were other factors at play. We had our orders from our Hokage. Inoki pleaded. Naruto barked out a brief and derisive laugh. Ha ha, you see, Yamanaka-san, that would qualify as drivel. Friends don't act the way each of you acted, so your claim to friendship is mute. What would you know about it, boy? Hiashi growled. He had stomached the tone and he was through with it. Naruto held up a hand to stop the shinobi from acting in tsunami for protesting. I lived through it, Hyuga-san. In fact, the only clan I would consider pardoning of those offenses would be the Nara. Shikamaru nodded in understanding, but Hiashi didn't know. And what made the Nara different than the rest? Naruto shook his head. Well, Hyuga, the Nara didn't instruct their children to isolate me. The Nara never took part in the beatings and Shikamaru remained my friend until the day I died in that village. You see? It wasn't like I was setting a high bar. Just don't be a dick and treat me and my mother like a human being. But you were a demon, Ino shouted out of turn. Naruto barked out a laugh. Oh, is that what you were told? Then you are as ignorant as the rest of the fools. Enjoy your trip back to Konoha. Tsunami tossed the alliance scroll to Hiashi, and I see no need to read that. Good day. Do you wish for war, boy? Hiashi growled after shaking off Kuza's hand. Because that is what you will get if you continue on this path. Naruto rose to his feet at that. Do you think you could win a war, Hyuga? Do you think even this group here could survive me alone? Do you think that we are scared of war? Speak carefully, Hyuga, for your words may go down in history. Naruto's threatening growl was accompanied by a ki that frightened the Konoha group to its core. Shikaku immediately stood up. Naruto. We are here to avoid a war. We are here to avoid needless and senseless loss of life. So, you walk into foreign lands with demands from the once mighty Konoha? You expect me to grant you an audience with a woman that Fugaku and Danzo undeniably tried to murder for the express purpose of isolating me and making me their weapon? Ask yourself, Shikaku, am I the one being unreasonable? Naruto's tone escalated throughout. That is enough, Sochi's soft and serene voice called. I will take it from here. Every head in the room turned to Kushina where she walked out in a majestically beautiful red kimono that was modeled after the one Hikari wore. It accented her beauty and feminine wiles, but the two swords at her hip reminded everyone that she was a mother first, warrior second, leader third and finally a diplomat. It was clear that she prioritized them in that order too. Kage Kushina. Hiashi muttered in shame. Kushina turned a hardened gaze on Hiashi. You are not the man that was Minato's best friend. You have led your family to ruin, and I forbid you to speak to me again. The only one allowed to speak is Shikaku. Should you ignore this demand, then you will be thrown out of Wave Country. Her voice was firm and broached no arguments. Shikaku stood forward. Are you the leader of Wave Country? Kushina softened her features into a placid and impassive visage. I am the Uzukage and daimyo of Uzushio. We have assigned Tsunami Dono as the governor of Wave and the country is under my protection. Shikaku gulped. Are you open to an alliance with Konoha? Not at this time. Kushina responded resolutely. Why not? Shikaku followed up with. Your friends are back in Konoha. Kushina's impassive visage cracked, and her hair started flaring. Friends? I believe my Sochi already addressed that presumption. As for why not, Fugaku tortured my Sochi for a full year and it ultimately killed him shortly after he attempted to have me assassinated. Shikaku stirred. What makes you think he tried to assassinate you? Other than back-to-backs rank missions with no break? Kushina asked with a cocked eyebrow and Shikaku nodded. That's easy, an Uchiha plant and 20 root shinobi showed up to kill me. I faked my death and when I returned to Konoha, my Sochi was dead. Now tell me, Shikaku, does that sound like an ally to you? No. Shikaku answered sadly before he raised his head. Where does that leave us? Keep your nose in business where it belongs. I do not wish anything of Konoha other than to leave me and my family alone. Kushina answered bluntly. Shikaku sighed, this is going to be troublesome. What happened to the Kyuubi? Kushina shrugged, don't know. My Sochi is not a Jinchuriki, if that is what you are asking. Then what is he and how is he alive? Shikaku countered while the rest of the Konoha group was completely enraptured by the conversation. He is none of your business. Take this message to Fugaku and tell him verbatim. If he moves on my family or any of our allies, then I will not leave Konoha standing. If he does anything that fucks with those I love, then I will castrate him and force feed him his own testicles. If any of his spies poked around Uzu, Wave or Kumo, then they will be sent back to him in pieces. We are not scared. Shikaku gulped at the key and the direct threat. His eyes took in Kushina in all of her majesty, and they flickered to the man that towered over her protectively. Understood. We will take our leave. Kushina called and she appeared bowing. Escort them to the inn on the other side of the bridge and pay for their overnight stay. If they attempt to re-enter Ushio, then they are considered hostile. Yes, Lady Shina, she said with a bow. As the Konoha group was escorted out, Naruto wrapped his mother in a hug and her chest began heaving in frustration. They knew that this would happen, and they were concerned about what would come next. They played on Konoha's ignorance of what happened with Naruto and used it to weave a narrative that would leave them in the dark. They had no illusions about Konoha's response. It was time for Cold War, and it was only a matter of time until it went hot. Part of the planned response was for Tsunami to reside in New Uzu until Konoha was dealt with. The Wave Council agreed to this, not like they had much say in it, and Tazuna would act on her behalf while she would travel to Ushio for the weekly council meetings. Uzushio would be on complete lockdown and only the merchant vessels with seals of the Uzumaki would be able to get through the barriers. They also strengthened the military presence in Wave because it was clear that would be the easiest and most obvious target for Konoha. One bright side of these changes for Tsunami was a couple nights with Naruto alone in Ushio. When she arrived in Iwagakure, she experienced what it was like to share Naruto for the first time. Despite her initial hesitation, she found it pleasant to be surrounded by a big family. It took her a little while to get comfortable with seeing multiple girls with multiple Narutos, but she considered it to be a blessing that only Naruto could provide. The next blessing Naruto gave her was her third child that was baking in her womanly oven. She slapped him something fierce for this because she wanted to look beautiful in her wedding dress. Her protestations halted and everyone cackled with laughter when Naruto made her pass out with manly reassurances. Needless to say, Tsunami was more than ready to become a true Uzumaki by the time the wedding arrived. Konoha's response: 3 days after meeting in Wave, Fugaku was holding a private meeting with Danzo and Black Zetsu in his office to get an update. It had been months since he sent Zetsu and the Akatski to Kiri and he was hoping for good news. And good news he received. Well, the Akatski proved effective and Kakuzu was able to capture Utakata with help from Hidan. The boy is in bad shape, but he is confined in the cellars of Root now. The Sanbi was sealed away into the holy pot that once sealed Shukaku. We took that from Suna, and we were able to seal the Sanbi in it with help from Deidara's explosions to coax it out, Kisame's Seimata and poisons from Sasori. Black Zetsu finished the initial report. Good, Fugaku said with a wicked grin. Did you encounter any Kiri forces? Black Zetsu cackled. We killed them and sent some white Zetsu clones to assume their identities to infiltrate Kiri. We do not believe that Kiri is aware, but that remains to be seen. Fugaku nodded. Anything else? Black Zetsu nodded. With so many biju ready to be sealed, we decided to grant you Madara-sama's Rinnegan. Understand this, Fugaku, that this is a gift. If you fail us, we will remove this privilege. Danzo's eyes widened at the mention of the Rinnegan. Will this be enough power to fight against Kumo? Why seal the biju away when we still need them to fight? Black Zetsu seemed to contemplate that. Well, that is a conundrum. Kumo is way too strong right now. We can weaken Kiri with the white Zetsu clones. However, the army is not ready yet and we will need more time to develop them all. Fugaku sighed. There is also the issue of the Kyuubi. Shikaku returned and informed me of the conversation with Kushina and Naruto. It is clear that Wave is not friendly to us. They also said that Naruto did indeed die. Tell me, Zetsu, you know more about shinobi history than anybody. You orchestrated the downfall of the Uzumaki. Could they revive the dead? Black Zetsu looked contemplative and nodded. Yes. From what we know, it only takes a sacrifice and a mask. The Uzumaki Mask Temple was cleared out shortly after Kushina's disappearance. So, the boy died. Then what happened to the Kyuubi? Danzo asked. Black Zetsu shrugged. If the vessel died, then it should reform. It reformed during your invasion, but it has gone quiet. You reported that it disappeared through a portal, but Madara closed the portals to Makai. I do not believe that it was actually able to return to Makai. It is a craft fox, it was the last biju to be captured and subdued for a reason, after all. Shouldn't you be able to feel its chakra? Fugaku asked. If the demon uses it, yes. That being said, the Kyuubi is sentient and smart. After being enslaved for the better part of a century, it is probably lying low. Zetsu answered contemplatively. Danzo grunted at that. I say we make new Jinchuriki loyal to us. When the time comes that we wish to seal the beasts, then they won't need to know. Fugaku turned to Zetsu. I want to give my son the four tails. It will help with healing his hands and amplify the fire affinity he possesses. Once I give him my Mangekyo, he will possess the eternal Mangekyo. This will make him an asset strong enough to fight against the strongest Kumo has to offer. Zetsu and Danzo nodded. Will the Rinnegan allow me to spare his life when it is time to seal the demon? Zetsu honestly didn't know, but it would be easy enough to manipulate the stupid mortal. Yes, those eyes are the eyes of God. Fugaku nodded with an evil smirk on his face. Good, then that is what we will do. We will leave Kumo be for now until our Jinchuriki can get trained up. Now, it is time for this damnable council meeting. Fugaku watched the reaction of the council as he let Shikaku and Hiashi complete their report. He needed to use this to stir them to action, but he also needed to delay it for now. He wanted his new Uchiha Jinchuriki warriors and he wanted them to have time to acclimate to their demons. Thus, he would play the merciful leader now and he would construct some evidence later when his Jinchuriki were ready. Hokage-sama. What are we going to do about the traitors? Atamba shouted. He was the representative for foreign trade and Kumo's rise had hit him the hardest. Nothing, for now. Fugaku answered calmly with his hands clasped and head resting on his hands. Shikaku raised an eyebrow. I appreciate you not being troublesome, Hokage-sama, but might I inquire as to the abrupt change in mentality? Fugaku eyed Shikaku carefully, because we are at a distinct disadvantage at the current time. We cannot afford to go to war, but we can still put political pressure on them. While the pressure is applied, we will ramp up our shinobi training and prepare for war. Hiruzen sighed. Why is war inevitable? The way I see it, all they want is to be left alone. There is still plenty of benefit in letting the past lie where it lay. Danzo clicked his cane. Does it seem like the Uzumaki clan is doing that? They cut off talks before they began. They have a military port with a land bridge into Fire Country. They have 2/3 of the elemental ocean under their naval control. And we have Fire Country, Wind Country and River Country is soon to pledge allegiance to us to benefit from our trade. The raw materials from Wind Country and the missions are more than enough to keep us occupied. Shikaku countered Danzo. How would you plan on outpacing Kumo's growth? Their education system, seals and military training appear to be better than ours. Not to mention they have actual allies that are to be bound by marriage. Hiashi added his unfavorable logic. Fugaku sighed. We will recruit more, train more and we will set more rigid standards for our shinobi. The alliances and marriages will fall apart if we manage to kill Uzumaki Naruto. Hiruzen chuckled wryly. Yeah, because that will be easy. Let's plan on killing a 16-year-old's rank shinobi that is the son of a Kage, the apprentice of another Kage and is named heir apparent to the Raikage. Not even you could pose a challenge to the boy, Hokage Dono. He is but one man. Kumo is spread thin, and they have many weaknesses, Homura said with dust puffing out of his throat with every word. Care to elaborate on that? Sume asked dubiously. Their alliance is spread out. Kiri is a week away by ship, Ame is almost 2 days travel by foot and Wave and Uzushio are at least 1 day away from Kumo. If it comes to war, then they cannot defend all of their territories simultaneously. Danzo broke it down crippled geezer style. Aren't we forgetting the seal protections? Inoiki asked before clarifying. Wave was protected by no less than 5 barriers from the bridge alone. Based on intelligence reports, it is just as challenging to enter from the ports. The seas are patrolled and that doesn't even take into consideration how many daimyos you would piss off if we were to start this war for shaky reasons. Hiashi nodded and spoke. He is right. The daimyo could care less if we are the number one or not. Koharu scowled. Those rich nobles only care about their coffers and luxuries. Sume coughed something like, pot meat kettle. Which earned chuckles from the Shinobi Council and scowls from the rest of the council. Fugaku pounded the desk. We will hold for now. The ramp up will begin and we will be prepared for war. The stage is set, and it would be foolish not to be ready. Wedding preparations. The time for the most unique wedding ever was coming soon, and that meant that Uzu Island was abuzz with people trying to complete their assigned preparations. Kurenai had remained on Uzu as one of the academy instructors, however, she was now responsible for the flower arrangements. She was initially worried about the transition from Konoha to a new way of life, but those worries were soon assuaged as the task of helping new Uzu thrive filled her with a contented happiness. She had been missing her boyfriend something fierce, and she was hoping that he would be relieved from his mission load soon to come to the island and spend some quality time with her. Kurenai waved to the San Sibs, as they were still called, and Temari ran over to join her. They waved goodbye to Gaara and Kankuro before they walked out into the jungle and headed toward the volcano. That was where the most vibrant flora was, and they wanted to get a truly remarkable selection for each of the brides. As they were walking, the two kunoichi gossiped. Kurenai ducked under a low-hanging tree limb and started the conversation. "So, Temari, any of the boys around here catch your interest?" Temari blushed and concentrated on the path through the dense jungle. "Not really," she muttered. Kurenai giggled. "Are you still hung up on Ruto?" Temari's blush deepened, and she sighed. "Well, I thought we had something going at the Chunin exams, and it turns out it was just his horny blood clone. Then he helped my brother and saved us from Suna's destruction and provided us a new home." Kurenai shook her head in bemusement. Her little brother really had a kunoichi magnetism that was unrivaled. "Well, that was a while ago. You talked to anyone since then?" Temari sighed. "No, not really. I don't even have a date to the wedding." "Even Gaara has a date to the wedding?" Kurenai giggled. "Oh yeah? Him and little Hanabi are cute together." "What about Kankuro?" Temari's blush faded and was replaced by rage at the thought. "If that puppet-crazed brother of mine got a date before me, then I would commit seppuku on the spot." Temari sighed and let go of her frustration. "Luckily, he is as hopeless as ever." Kurenai tapped her chin and thought, what about? Enough about me." Temari cut her off before continuing. "What is this I hear about the former Ice Queen of Konoha having a boyfriend?" It was Kurenai's turn to blush, and blush she did. "Well, it kind of just happened. I took a couple missions with him over the summer break and found out he is a great guy." Temari nodded at that. "He sure is. How are things going with him? Shouldn't he be arriving soon?" "Yup," Kurenai chirped happily. "Any day now. The cleanup of Otto took longer than we expected." Temari scowled at the thought. "I am just mad that we still have to hide from Konoha. I wanted to go and take part in that. Atsui was a really cool guy, and Tuya is still taking it really hard." Kurenai's happy mood faded. "Trust me, Temari-chan, you didn't want to see what was in those labs. I went for the initial surge, and those memories still pop up in my nightmares. Even still." Temari protested. "The Uzumakas have done so much for us that I want the chance to pay them back." Kurenai nodded with a small smile on her face. "Then just focus on your tasks and get stronger. You have done an amazing job training the students and protecting new Uzu." Temari sighed. Sure. Well, when it is time to fight, I am not letting Ruto sideline me anymore." "So, he is really going to marry 7 girls at once?" "Yup," Kurenai said while shaking her head. "If it were any other guy, I would trap him in a genjutsu severe and long enough to turn him gay. But it's Ruto." Temari finished for her, and they bother broke out in giggles. "Have you heard about Mikoto and Hitomi?" Kurenai asked in a gossipy tone. "Of course," Temari responded in a similar tone. "The whole island has at this point. Hard not to after Hitomi forgot to put up silencing seals." Kurenai giggled and shook her head. "To think that Daru, the laziest ninja in Kumo, and Hitomi, the prim and proper Hyuga, could make that much noise." Temari cackled in laughter when it was put like that. "I don't know if that is more surprising than Mikoto. She is a dominant woman, and to see her walking around with Yugito caught me off guard. I didn't know they swang that way." Kurenai shrugged. "I asked Mikoto about it in the hot springs. She said that she was sick of dealing with pigs, and Yugito was always a lesbian since an incident. That being said, they signed up for Operation New General." Temari facepalmed. "How many babies is that blonde baka going to have?" Kurenai giggled. "Well, now that he is flashing everywhere and leaving clones, I heard the girls joke that he could have 1 baby for each clone he makes." Temari blushed at the thought. "So, he is willing to take more women?" "Not really," Kurenai answered, "but Ruto could never deny his precious people. I think Yugito and Mikoto are just planning to guilt trip him into it." Temari cast an incredulous look at Kurenai. "Guilt trip him into having sex with them?" Kurenai shrugged. "Honestly, I could care less. We all know he will provide, and those 2 women are grown enough to make their own decisions." Temari sighed and muttered, "Maybe I should try that. There are plenty of fish in the sea, Temari-chan." Kurenai chirped. It's just that the Uzu Ocean is pretty female heavy. You aren't interested in any of the other Kumo boys? Tamari shrugged, dunno. Guess I will have to see who is with who at the wedding. The girls finally made it to the base of the volcano and noticed the brilliant plants that grew out of the nutrient-rich volcanic ash. They grabbed what they needed and returned to the village. After dropping off their cargo to Kushina, who was quarterbacking the wedding planning with Hitomi and Mikoto, they made their way to a Dengo diner. When they arrived at the diner, Kurenai was surprised when she was grabbed from behind. Guess who? A calm male voice said. Kurenai didn't guess, she simply leaned back into his embrace. It's about time you arrived, Baka. The man chuckled, sorry, I would normally say I got lost of the road of life, but I was on a mission. Turns out I didn't even need an excuse. Kurenai spun around in his arms, pulled down his mask and placed a tender kiss on his lips. You will never change, she sighed out contentedly after the kiss ended. Kakashi shrugged, why change what is already perfect? Kurenai giggled and placed another kiss on his lips before pulling his face mask back up. Tamari watched the intimate scene jealously, but that changed when she looked into the diner and caught a wave from Kumo's most popular man and his friends. They waved her over and she went to join the not-so-small group. Heya, Tamari-chan, how are things going for you here? Mabui chirped and patted the seat next to her. Hey guys, I am good. So, y'all ready for the wedding? Tamari asked as she looked around the table. Naruto shrugged, just another day. I simply get to make things official and call these beautiful women my brides. 7 blushes adorned the truly stunning women that surrounded the table. Amoe shook his head, you get 7 and I don't even have a date. Calm your tits, Whitey, I don't have a fucking date either, Tuya said in false bravado, which earned her arms of comfort from the ladies around the table. Aw, stop it you cunts. This isn't about my single sexy ass or my dead boyfriend. Tuya tried maintaining the brave visage, but she could never fool her closest friends, especially not Naruto. Naruto pulled her onto his lap and pulled her into a firm and reassuring hug. His massive frame let her cuddle into him and hide her tears while he tenderly rested his chin atop her head. Naruto didn't have to say anything, he just held her in front of everyone. A minute later, Tuya rebounded and shook off the gloominess. So, Kaka-ni, you asked Kurenai to be your date to the wedding yet? Naruto asked while still holding Tuya in his lap. Kakashi waved him off. She is my girlfriend. Of course, she is going with me. This comment earned his scowls from the women at the table and a bonk on the head from Tamari's fan. Look, you lazy fucktard, sometimes ladies want to be treated like they are fucking appreciated. Stop being a lazy twat and do something special for that dime piece that agreed to settle for a cunt like you. She is so fucking beautiful she could make my rosebud shine and my shitty mouth spew fucking rainbows, Tuya said through a scowl. Her mood swings were something terrifying since Atsui's death and the removal of the curse mark. Kakashi was rubbing the back of his head sheepishly with a nervous eye smile showing. He had the wherewithal to remain silent and he just wrapped an arm over Kurenai's shoulder. After goodbyes, the two left Tamari with the group fresh from Kumo. So, when did you all get in? Tamari asked after ordering a plate of dengo. Flew in an hour ago. The Eagles are going to let us become summoners once we are officially married to Naruto, so we each have our own familiars, Maya said enthusiastically. Well, Itachi-chan is going to stick with the crows, Amy has the salamanders and Hikari is out, but the rest of us will sign the Eagle contract, Tsunami said. Tamari looked at her dumbly, you are going to sign? I didn't know you had enough chakra, Tsunami giggled, oh, I don't. Luckily, I have a man that is gifted with seals and is the pride of the Screaming Eagles. And Tsunade-chan agreed to help me out. This earned giggles from the girls at the table. Amoe sighed but before he could speak, Naruto pulled him to get some drinks for the girls at the table. With the boys gone, the girls got down to it. Tuya kicked off the conversation in her usual crass manner. So, you beautiful cunts, you all waxed up and ready to ride the shithead? Samui giggled, yup, I am cool and ready to go. Tsunami blushed, well, girls, how will the wedding night go? Hikari got a foxy grin on her face, we share in all things. It is time for us to share in each other. Amy and Maya blushed fiercely. They were the only two virgins at the table. Amy spoke softly, so, my first time is going to be an orgy? Hikari snapped her fingers, oh, I almost forgot that you two were still innocent. I am impressed that you were each able to resist the temptation. Well, maybe we will let you have him first and we can watch. Itachi let a perverted grin pull on the edges of her lips, I can keep you entertained while watching, Hikari-chan. Hikari giggled perversely, oh, I know you can, Chi-chan. I still remember what you did to Naruto quite vividly. Jaws fell at this revelation, But it was Maya that asked, Naruto? Naruto's female transformation. Kitsune illusions and dense chakra make his transformations real. Itachi explained. And Chi-chan took full advantage of that. Hikari finished, which made the girls at the table blush crimson. No fucking way, Tuya gasped. You plowed, shithead? Itachi nodded sheepishly and Hikari started dribbling blood from her nose. Tamari summed up the thoughts for the girls at the table, that is, crazy. I am so jealous, Mabui giggled like a schoolgirl in a sex store, just wait until he ties you up. Samui moaned, he has gotten so good at that. When he tied us together, Samui's nose trickled blood and she licked it instinctively with her tongue in a sexy manner. Hikari nearly lost it, I wanted to come out of the seal and join you for that one. You two didn't even last an hour though. Maya was redder than an atomically hot thermometer. What do you mean, TT together? Mabui shook her head to clear her thoughts. We were bound face to face and dangling from the ceiling. All of our erogenous zones were linked by chakra-sensitive metal clamps and, she trailed off as the memory clouded her mind. And we had a dildo joining us. Samui added before joining Mabui in a faraway state. And Naruto took them both from behind. Hikari giggled as the finishing blow made steam pour out of the girls' ears and multiple heads hit the table with goofy grins on their faces. Naruto and Amoy walked back up to the table with a dubious look on his face. What did you do, Hikari-chan? Hikari giggled, just a bit of girl talk. So, is he in? Amoy blushed a bit and nodded, yes, I am in. I will ask her tonight. Hikari stood and patted Amoy on the shoulder, confidence, young man. Women are attracted to it, and you are a fine young man. Just make sure to take care of her. Amoy bowed stiffly, yes, ma'am. Later that night, Naruto walked into the lab to see Kushina and Kairo hard at work on the teleporter that they were building. Kairo had thrown herself fully into the project and Kushina had a vested interest in seeing Minato again. Kitsumbi appeared out of the shadows and bowed to Naruto. Good evening, Naruto-sama, he said formally. Naruto sighed, but he had given up on trying to talk the kitsune out of the formalities. Sup, Sumbi? How are you ladies doing? Kushina turned and beamed a smile at him while Kairo dashed over to Naruto and jumped into his arms. She placed a fiery kiss on his lips and ended with a little nibble. Ruto looked at her expectantly, as if asking for an explanation. She smiled seductively at him. Once you are done tending to your wives, I am ready to go. Little Kaisa is so cute, and I have finally caught the baby fever. Plus, things are more settled here now so it feels safer. She explained in a husky whisper. Naruto smiled at that and pecked her on the lips. Okay, good to know. The girls are having their bachelorette party tonight and I knew you two would be so wrapped up in this that you would forget. It is time for you to get ready. Kushina smiled at her thoughtful son, of course, Sochi. Thanks for that. We are close to ready. We need to integrate the Senjutsu power source and work on stabilizing the dimensional flow still, but we should be finished soon. Your adaptation of the Hiraishin beacon really helped. Naruto smiled at that. Seal talk later, Kachan. Go have fun tonight. Sumbi, can I trust you to watch over them? Kitsumbi nodded. If any of the sailors get handsy, they will be dealt with. The shinobi already know better, so we won't have to worry about them. Kushina scoffed, we don't need a watcher. Kachan, the last time you went out drinking with Tsunade there were 4 bars and 2 clubs that sent I and I the bill. It is as much for others' protection as it is for your own, Naruto said in a chastising manner. The next morning when Naruto woke up to complete his morning workout, he walked into the hallway and was instantly able to sense that something was off. It wasn't wrong, but it was definitely weird. He could feel his girls and a couple more, but it was as if something in his senses were pinging alarm bells. However, he had to pee, so he went to the bathroom first and that was where he found his first casualty of the night. Naruto saw Maya curled up in a ball by the toilet and he could smell the residue of vomit and sake on her. He chuckled and shook his head when he saw a number of perverted markings on her face and the pink penis ears that she wore through the night were lying on the floor next to her head. Naruto saw her face covered in glitter-covered penis tattoos and it was clear that she had tried to remove her clothes at some point in the puking process. Naruto drew up a warm bath, stripped off her clothes and picked the unconscious girl in a princess carry. As the real Naruto sank into the warm bath with Maya, he created a couple clones to go check on the rest of the girls. He began removing the penis tattoos because he knew that she would be super embarrassed about those, and he didn't need her any shyer than she already was. The auburn-haired beauty shifted into his embrace as the warm water lapped over her skin. Naruto's clones nearly dispelled themselves as they explored the rest of the house. Chuya was passed out in the hallway, or more precisely, in her doorway. She was half naked as if she passed out in the process of stripping her clothes off. She looked disheveled and hungover, but the clone scooped her up and took her to the bath. Amy was passed out on the kitchen table, lying flat on her back, and she had a pool of drool on the table. It seemed like she changed into a Playboy rabbit costume at some point in the night, and she was cuddling a feathery pink scarf to her side. Kushina was passed out face first in Tsunade's bust, who was lying on her back on the couch. The disheveled clothing revealed far more skin and underwear on his mother and aunt than Naruto wanted to see, but it wasn't too bad. Samui and Mabui were cuddled together on the floor at the foot of the couch that Kushina and Tsunade occupied. Itachi was wrapped up like a cat on the chair in just her underwear. Tsunami was absent, but that made sense to Naruto since she was pregnant, so she wasn't likely to drink. There were sake bottles and bachelorette paraphernalia all over the room. It was a scene of perverted chaos that was wild in its nature and completely saturated in female debauchery. Naruto's clones ended up carrying all women present to the bath that he was in. His mother made damn sure that the family could bathe together, and they fit together easily within the tub. Each Naruto clone stayed with a girl until they were fully awake, and some were forced to stay even after that. Thus, Naruto's workout turned into a group bath with the women he loved most in this world. "Thanks, brat." Tsunade grunted. "No problem, Buchan." "Where is Shizune?" Naruto asked after noticing the absence of Tsunade's apprentice. Tsunade yawned and waved him off. "No worries, she is with Genma." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Since when have those two been at it?" Tsunade shrugged and her massive bust jiggled. "Since the evacuation." Maya yawned and cuddled further into Naruto. "Ah, my head." "Tsunade-sama, do you have anything for hangovers?" Tsunade chuckled and moved through the bath to place two glowing green hands on Maya's temples. Maya let out a moan of relief as Tsunade used her anti-hangover jutsu on the girl. The legendary medic patted her head and returned to her spot. She could care less that Naruto got to see her legendary rack. She offered a wink to the blushing man and continued the conversation. "So, wedding in a couple days. How are you feeling?" she asked with a knowing look. Naruto shrugged. "Already love them, will always love them, will never let them go, so, yeah. Nothing changes except a piece of paper." This earned smiles from the girls that were waking up, and Hikari snuggled into his right side. "Feeling is mutual, Ruto-kun. Plus, we are already mated, so this is really just a human ceremony. See what I mean?" Naruto asked with a playful smirk to Tsunade. "Lucky brat. If I don't want the senju to die out, then I need someone to fertilize the eggs that I harvested before I went through menopause," Tsunade said. Karen entered the bathroom and stepped into the bath. "I have told you that it will be no problem, you just need to select a sperm donor." Without being forceful or overly obvious, Ruto would be the obvious choice as he still has some senju in his blood. Tsunade looked awkwardly at Naruto. "I don't disagree, there is just something." "Oh, can it, Tsunade?" Kushina groaned while grabbing her head. "My Sochi is committing to more than that with even closer relatives. Quit making excuses and just do it. Your eggs may have dried up, but your womb can still carry, for now." Tsunade frowned at the truth behind the statement. She wanted to carry the child, and she knew that even that ability would be robbed from her in time. "I will think about it. This week is about these yahoos though. So, Itachi-chan, how do you feel getting married along with 6 other women? One of whom is a demoness?" "Lucky," was Itachi's shy response as she blushed profusely. "Oh ho, well look at you go, Ruto. Able to keep all of these girls and your family happy. That is something special," Tsunade said cheekily. "Can you honestly say you are surprised? I mean, look at that body." So yummy," Amy said, which earned a round of head nods and giggles from the girls. "Can't argue with that." Tsunade conceded, and the group enjoyed the rest of their time in the bath. "Exquisite wedding," Naruto breathed in deep as he adjusted his formal kimono in the mirror. Suddenly, I appeared behind his back left shoulder with B at his right. Each of the massive men placed a sizable palm on Naruto's shoulder in support. Naruto let an appreciative, if not slightly nervous, smile greet the two through the mirror. With one more pat down, Naruto considered his kimono good. Naruto was dressed in a royal blue kimono with golden edgings. He had really taken to the color of the divine bolts, and he had agreed to the adaptation of the seal for the Uzumaki clan. A vibrant golden Uzumaki clan symbol with a Kumo symbol in the center occupied a modestly sized portion on the back of his kimono in between his shoulder blades. The front of his kimono was trimmed with the same golden lining along the natural edges of the cloth. It made for a supremely sharp appearance that highlighted his natural tone and figure. "Look, bud, shake out those nerves. You have been waiting for this day for years." Maybe the number grew, but you have been looking forward to marrying Hikari since you were 8, I comforted him. Hey, yo, little bro, you got a bunch of beautiful ladies waiting on you, you can't back out now fool, you fool. Take a deep breath and breathe and there is no way they will leave, B said in his usual fashion. Daru sighed, look, Ruto, they are right. You will be just fine. There isn't a single person out there that doesn't believe that. Thanks for the double negative, Daru, Naruto said while chuckling. Hanzo stepped forward with a firm look on his visage. I have found you worthy and entrust my daughter's happiness to you. Should you break her heart, I will end you, he emphasized the last point, and when Hanzo the salamander flares his ki, well, people take him seriously. B chuckled nervously and handed him a shot glass. Kumo fire whiskey brother, then we can go see your mother. The men in the room each joined Naruto in a shot, then another, and then another. The smell of fire whiskey perfused the room and things seemed to lighten up a bit. Naruto didn't know why he was actually nervous. It was probably just an instinctive response to promising marriage and children to so many beautiful women at once. He only needed to stay calm and think of their beautiful faces to get his bearings back under him. Elsewhere, in the women's changing room, pandemonium ensued. Weddings were bad enough when there was only one wife to tend to. With 7 brides being prepared, well, it was chaos. The Uzumaki women and friends of the brides ran this way and that in an attempt to grab makeup, check hair or do any number of ridiculous actions that brides have their bridesmaids do. That chaos lasted until 20 minutes before the ceremony started when Kushina came into the room. Kushina planted her hands on her hips in an authoritative position and used her Uzumaki voice to get control of the room. Enough. The girls froze in place and turned their heads to Kushina. Girls, you look beautiful. You all know the plan and you are professional kunoichi, or a daimyo, for Kami's sake. Get control of yourselves and get your minds right. A silence settled over the room and movement continued at a much less frantic pace. The girls got their final preparations completed and they used the last 10 minutes to sync up and get in the mood. Kushina joined the huddle of beautiful women and joined them in the Uzumaki marriage ritual. The ritual was initially intended for a mother and bride, but hey, adapt and overcome. Kushina spoke softly to the huddle of women that had their hands linked. To my beautiful daughters-to-be, I say this. I love each of you with all that I am, and I count you among family. I entrust my son to you. Make him happy and share in that happiness with him. Fill him with love and let his love fill you. Bear with him through troubled time and rejoice with him in the victories. Grow our family in love and bring honor to the Uzumaki clan. Hikari answered on behalf of the girls. Thank you, mother. From this day forward, guide us on the path of life. Be our shelter from stormy seas. Give us your guidance and love so that we may join with your son and become one with your family. We will lean on you, listen to you and love you for the rest of our lives. This sentiment was confirmed by the rest of the girls. Who, Kushina said with exaggeration, now that the formalities are out of the way, all that remains is rice wine baby. Tsunade stepped in and handed out sake saucers to each of the girls and the ones there to support them. She allowed Kushina to lead the toast. Welcome to the Uzumaki family. If you forget all else, remember this. Family before all, always and forever. Family before all. The serenely ethereal voices of the most beautiful women in the lands cheered. After the drinks, the brides were left alone in the room with 5 minutes before the ceremony. Kushina went to take her place by her son's side. He looked so dashing in his royal blue kimono and she was so proud to see the new Uzumaki emblem on his back. Her heart swelled with affection as her linked her arm with hers and then they walked down the carpeted aisle of the Uzumaki shrine. Words didn't need to be exchanged between mother and son. This whole thing started with them against the world and Kushina would be there by his side till she breathed her last. Naruto knew this and Kushina knew that the feeling was mutual. Their warmth and chakra radiated contentedly with one another, and it served as proof that their familial bond was strong enough to triumph above all. Kushina and Naruto walked proudly down the aisle with their friends, family, fellow shinobi and people of Wave, Kiri, Ame, Kumo, and Uzushio. The Uzumaki shrine was decorated with an assortment of the chosen flowers of each of the brides. The combined floral scent was ethereal and heavenly, and it set the room as the music announced him. Naruto locked eyes with Ai, who was standing in the position of his best man. He once again felt his sensei's pride through the eye contact, and he was elated to notice that it was similar to that of his mother's. It was familiar, rich and proud in nature as if I considered Naruto his own. Naruto took his position in front of the altar and turned around to watch his girls approach. Kushina took up her ceremonial position because she was the eldest true Uzumaki remaining. As the music shifted to announce the brides, the crowd of nearly 500 rose to their feet and turned to watch the entrance of brides. Naruto reveled in the stunned gasp as the audience was awed by the beauty of his soon-to-be wives. The girls looked truly radiant as they walked down the aisle hand in hand. The girls were wearing beautiful dresses that were in the traditional red of the Uzumaki with golden hemming. Each dress was nearly identical as it adorned the beautiful and curvy figures of Naruto's girls. Each dress was strapless and dipped down in a beautiful, curved V cut to expose a sensuous, yet modest, amount of cleavage. The backs of the dresses exposed each of their upper backs and allowed the audience to see their well-toned back. Their legs were covered in the same red silk all the way down to their ankles that exposed golden-heeled dress shoes. Kurama led the assortment of women with Samui on her left and Mabui on her right hand. To Mabui's right was Amy and Maya. To Samui's left was Tsunami and Itachi. Each of the girls looked truly radiant as they wore contented smiles on their faces and moved in perfect harmony down the aisle. The slow approach allowed the audience to get a full view and appreciation of their beauty. Kushina watched her daughters-in-law approach with her heart swollen with love. Karen, Rias, Kin and Tuya watched the approach with happy smiles and modest amounts of jealousy. They each wanted to experience this with Naruto. B and the Kumo shinobi watched with happy and proud smiles as they watched the pride of Kumo. Mei, Maria, Mikoto and the other moms watched the serene approach with happy grins on their faces. The men of the audience appreciated the beauty and were simmering with jealousy. The women of the audience were filled with similar emotions for completely inverse reasons. All in all, the music came to a halt as the women took their places in front of Naruto. The unusual ceremony started with the 7 girls facing away from the crowd as they stayed with hands clasped in front of the altar. Naruto stood in front of them and facing the crowd, but his eyes and attention were given fully to each of his brides. Kushina was behind the altar with 8 ceremonial candles lit. The groomsmen were arranged in a line on the right side of the altar while the bridesmaids were on the left side. Kushina channeled chakra to her voice and began the ceremony. Welcome all to the wedding of Naruto Uzumaki to Hikari, Mabui, Samui, Amy, Maya, Itachi, and Tsunami. As the head of the Uzumaki clan, I am honored to bring these 7 beautiful women into my clan and family. Before we get started today, the brides and groom have asked for a minute of silence for Atsui of the Divine Bolts and the comrades lost in the assault on Odogakure. Everyone bowed their heads and offered their prayers for the souls of the fallen. A trickle of tears came from each of the Divine Bolts and those that had the honor to know the fiery hot passion of Atsui. There were also 40 Kumo shinobi lost in the assaults on the various labs, and it was a startling reminder to everyone present how quickly life can end. As the reverent minute of absolute silence came to an end, Kushina continued the ceremony. It is the losses and trials of a shinobi's life that makes days like today so important to commemorate. The love that I have witnessed between each of these people standing before you are something truly beautiful. It all started with the birth of my Sochi and a marriage contract. It spurred him forward and gave him something to fight for, strive for and protect each and every day. That motivation led to the amazing man that has touched each of our lives in some way. The light he exuded drew many women toward him, and I will be the first to admit that I didn't expect to be marrying him off to 7 beautiful women. Kushina paused here and let the audience, and girls, laugh while Naruto scratched the back of his neck sheepishly with a goofy grin on his face. That being said, each of these girls is an absolute blessing on my family and my Sochi. I welcome them into the family with my whole heart and no trepidation. Without further ado, let us commence the Uzumaki binding ceremony. Kushina stepped around the altar with a ceremonial band that was especially made for today. Normally, it only bound 2 hands together, however, there were 8 people being bound today and a new ceremonial band was crafted. Kushina started with Naruto and beckoned him closer to the girls. He stepped forward and locked eyes with each girl as the ceremonial band was linked with their hands. With the final girl bound, Kushina placed her hand on a seal that resided on the center of the band. Let your love be like the island, let it offer you shelter and protection from the stormy seas. Let it be immovable and enduring so that it may provide a foundation for your family. Let your love illuminate the night like the gentle moon as it guides you on calm seas. As the moon illuminates the night in its soft glow, let your love provide solace in each other's darkness. Let your love burn with the passion of the sun so that it may provide light and life to your family. As the sun lights the world, let your love empower your happiness and ward off your darkness. Let love be your guiding principle and remember that family comes before all, always and forever. The powerful and emotional words of the Uzumaki matriarch reached into the hearts of the audience and drew them in. Not a single face remained dry, and every person clutched their heart while grabbing their loved one's hand. The groom was stifling his tears, but alas, he failed when a single tear traced down the left side of his cheek. The brides weren't as lucky as trickles of tears left faint trails in their otherwise majestic makeup. Overall, The Uzumaki ceremony drew a powerful response from the audience. After Kushina let the audience recover from the emotional surge, she continued the ceremony. It is now time for the groom to announce his vows. Naruto shifted nervously, closed his eyes, took a deep breath and opened his eyes that were saturated with love and compassion. The startling azure blue twinkled with sincerity as he began speaking. I would like to start by admitting that I am the luckiest man in the world. From the day I was born I was shielded by the love of my mother and the promise to a goddess. Since that day, our love has grown and expanded in the most beautifully unexpected way. To Hikari, my soul, I say thank you. To Mabui, my heart, I say I love you. To Samui, my cool queen, I say forever. To Itachi, my light, I say always. To Tsunami, my serenity, I promise faith and loyalty. To Amy, my fire, I promise passion. To Maya, my joy, I promise eternity. To each of my gorgeous brides, I swear to love you forever and cherish you always. I happily and willfully bind my soul to yours for this life, the next and the remainder of eternity. The girls' hands were bound, which stopped them from clearing away the sparkling tears that were trickling down their faces. Despite that, each of their eyes glistened in contentment and sparkled with joy. Their serene smiles filled Naruto's heart and earned gasps from the audience that was watching on a screen. The aura that radiated from the podium was nearly all-encompassing as it enshrouded those present in a soft and warm blanket of tranquility. Hikari did her best to clear the frog from her throat as she spoke for the girls. She wasn't sure what to expect out of a human ceremony, but it had exceeded all of her expectations. As she looked into the eyes of her soulmate, her red eyes softened as the red orbs glistened with love and happiness. She spoke softly and allowed the seals to spread her voice. Naruto Uzumaki, it was difficult trying to cram the overwhelming emotions of so many passionate women into one vow, but we tried. We choose to start our vows by promising a continuation and eternal growth of the love that has served as our foundation. We cherish you for your heart, give ourselves to your soul, connect to you in your wisdom, offer ourselves to your strength, follow you for your leadership, and we can't wait to ravage that yummy body for the rest of our days. Hikari paused here to let the audience blush and laugh embarrassedly. We each can't wait to experience this life with you by your side, and we are grateful for the sisters our union grants us. From now until death do us part, and evermore, we promise to love you and our family with all that we are. Kushina's smile was beneficent as she placed her hands on the center of the band and pushed chakra into the seal. The ceremonial band glowed a brilliant gold and blew up in a chakra light explosion that left sparkling gold dust amidst the brides and groom. In the ceremonial band's place were sparkling golden rings that were each engraved with an Uzumaki diamond. It was a brilliant display, and each of those rings carried the Uzumaki soul binding seal and could not be removed. Despite the finality of it, each of the girls smiled brilliantly as they glimpsed the matching rings. Naruto's gigawatt smile lifted the hearts of every in attendance, and he kissed each of his brides in a panty-droppingly passionate fashion as his mother announced him husband and wives. Rather than concluding the ceremony there, Naruto led his wives out of the temple, across the beach, and they started walking toward the central whirlpool that guarded the island. At the base of this whirlpool was the master seal of the Uzumaki, and it was necessary for all couples to be accepted by the island. The group walked across the turbulent waters in peace to the very edge of the whirlpool. Everyone watched on from the beach as they strolled out, and most people couldn't believe they were getting so close to the center of the whirlpool. The group came to a halt, and Naruto removed a ceremonial dagger from the sleeve of his kimono. He slit his palm and passed it to Hikari, who passed it down the line of girls. Hikari's chakra leaked out and mixed with the waters that swirled with the blood of her new family. Each of the girls watched and waited, not knowing what to expect. There was a brilliant blue flash of chakra light from the seal that resided on the base of the ocean floor nearly 150 feet below. It made the whole whirlpool glow, and everyone watched in amazement as the swirling waters slowed down. Within a minute, the whirlpool came to a peaceful rest and serenity settled over the ocean waters on that side of the island. Once that happened, Naruto turned the group around and they walked back onto the beach amidst the cheers of everyone present. With the ceremony officially over, the partying began. Raucous reception. What does a wedding party look like when it is thrown on essentially a private island that is owned by the family throwing the party? Well, it looks like drinks, shouting, laughing, dance floors bumping, and couples hooking up. That much is pretty standard, but have you ever seen a wedding party with 7 copies of the groom running around? What about 7 brides? Yeah, I thought not. Naruto and each of his hulking copies wore massive, contented grins on their faces as they stood next to their brides and greeted the guests. The High Lords and other important people went through the greeting line while Naruto kept the drinks flowing. Once the self-designated important people went through the line, it was time for friends of the family and fellow shinobi. It was awesome for Naruto to see how his friends were pairing up. Genma and Shizune were the first couple to come through, and Genma offered Naruto a sincere hug. The man had gone out on a limb for him, and Naruto wished that he had more time to get to know his father's former guard. Shizune was essentially another sister, and Naruto was just happy to see her happy with Genma. Next came Mikoto and Yugito, who were walking proudly hand in hand. It was strange in the shinobi world to see a lesbian couple, but not in New Uzu. Naruto easily made Yugito blush and slap his shoulder when he guessed that it was Mikoto that played the male role in the relationship. It was Mikoto's knowing wink that made Naruto break out in a fit of laughter. Mabui squealed in surprise when Tamari and Amoe walked in together. Naruto was just happy to see Amoe happy, and he hoped that one of his best friends would grow on the San Kunoichi. Tamari seemed happy with the white-haired fella, but it was clear that the feelings would take time to settle and sink in. Then came Tuya in her usual flamboyant manner, walking arm in arm with Rias, who was ready to pop in a month. Tuya had fun throughout the wedding, convincing the many guests that Rias' baby was actually between the two of them. Nobody tried to stop her. If she needed the entertainment to get over her loss, then so be it. Naruto even got in on the joke and provided some backup on the claim, which made more than a few of his friends and wedding guests blush. Kakashi brought Naruto one of the few mementos of Minato that he had left. He gave Naruto one of the original 3-pronged kunai that Minato had given him during a mission all those years ago after first completing the technique. Kurenai just let the guys do their thing and squealed loudly as she wrapped each of the girls in a hug. After that, Yugao and Hayate came through the line to offer their congratulations. It was truly great to see all of his precious people pairing up. Naruto then greeted Gaara and Hanabi, truly a quiet and pleasant couple. Gaara's new relationship with Shukaku left him as a quiet fly-on-the-wall sort of guy. Hanabi, after being freed of the caged bird seal, was mostly the same. It made it so that the hand-holding couple just appeared, offered a sincere, if not formal, congratulations and made their way. It was quite the contrast to Anko and B that made their way boisterously into the line. "Hey yo. Little bro." Anko started flamboyantly while raising a glass in the air. 7 beautiful bitches all at once, Naruto chuckled sheepishly as he stood next to Hikari, who was sending a sexy smirk combined with a raised eyebrow to Anko. B stepped in and linked an arm around Naruto's shoulder. B rapped playfully for Naruto. "My not so lil man, cashin' in on a master plan. 7 beautiful brides, my man making strides. Try not to sleep tonight, you need ta tend to your lady's plight." Hikari licked her lips seductively. "Damn straight he does," Hikari said while pulling a chuckling Naruto closer into her. She snaked a hand down to his ass and gave it a firm squeeze. "You hear that, mister? No sleep tonight until each of our plights are tended to." Naruto placed a chaste kiss on Hikari's lips. "Can do, Richan. Just try to keep up." He returned the ass grab and added a little jolt of lightning to get the desired reaction. The blushing and purring Kitsune informed him that he got the desired response. Anko just downed her drink, pumped her empty glass into the air and cheered loudly. "Damn straight. You hear that, bullykins? You have a lot to live up to tonight," she said seductively into B's ear before licking it. As the blushing B walked away, I and Mei stepped up to offer their congratulations. Naruto didn't hold the relationship against the two. In a way, he was glad that I would be an official dad. Sure, he lamented his mother being respectfully set aside, but the almost immediate arrival of Kitsumbi made it easier to handle. It was almost as if some deity, cough, Mr. Author or Kami, had some master plan. Thus, there was no damage done to Ai's relationship with any of the Uzumaki, even if there were some sexual tensions. "Congrats, bud. Couldn't be prouder of you," I said softly into Naruto's ear as the two massive men hugged. Naruto slapped Ai's back in a passionate, bro hug, manner. "Thanks, Pops. I love you." I broke the hug and ruffled Naruto's wild blonde locks. "Love you too, bud." After Mei released Hikari, she pulled Naruto's head into her sizable and very exposed bust. How did she manage that when Naruto is like 5 inches taller than her? "Oh. Ruto. Welcome to the family. I am so excited." Naruto pulled himself out of the heavenly valley and offered her a sincere smile. "Thanks, Mama. Take care of Pops for me and remember your silencing seals tonight." I broke out in a laugh and pulled Mei further down the line with his hand on her lower back. He called over his shoulder, "Same to you, bud. Stamina training tonight." The simple implication made Naruto laugh and shake his head. The reception continued into a sincerely amazing night. The party dragged on and migrated onto the beach. The cool night air, bonfires and endless drinks each contributed to the jubilation, but as each couple left and the beach cleared, the jubilant madness came to an end. At least, The public jubilation did. It gave way to nights of passion and debauchery. One such room was legendary in this manner. There is a lemon here. If you want to read it, link to the story is in the description. At the time of making this video, it hasn't been posted there yet, but it will be in the future. Patreons, the unedited version can be found over there. Anyways, back to the story. Kirinji was super jealous and slightly upset that his beauty sleep was interrupted by such lewd conduct. That was until the sensual noises actually registered in his head and a nosebleed sent him blissfully back to the lands of dreams. I and Mei were woken up early and decided to make the most of it with their own morning session. Yeah, the whole resort had a variety of similar reactions to the loud and sensual alarm clock coming from the honeymoon suite. As for the newlyweds, well, they were each laying in crumpled and intertwined heaps on a bed that would most definitely need to be replaced by the hotel. The silly grins, goofy smiles and droplets of drool each spelled out a wild night that completed satiated all present. Naruto found himself buried in a hot mess of heavenly mounds and soft skin all tangled up in a beautiful mess of silky hair. Each girl cuddled instinctively into a tail except Akari, who laid on the right arm of her Hanyu. As for the left arm, well, that spot belonged to the milk chocolate Mabui that was spooned from behind by Samui. All in all, Naruto was in a very messy and sexy smelling heaven. On the move, Fugaku walked through the root facility with Danzo and Sasuke. Sasuke was appointed Fugaku's will in the Akatski, which really didn't go over too smoothly with a bunch of ranks. That being said, the Uchiha Hokage gave them most everything they could need or want, so they tolerated the brat. As Fugaku approached a chamber, Sasuke let out a low whistle and the trio saw a group of 3 figures form up in front of the sex members of the Akatski. The 3 Uchiha chosen to bear the biju were a date with Sanbi, Tetsugat Rakubi and Itsuo contained Nanabi. Sasuke had the Inbi because of his high fire affinity, and he now had the ape under the effects of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Each Jinchuriki had tracking seals, loyalty seals and, unknown to them, remote-activated chakra suppression seals. Through Sharingan suppression and manipulation, they were each able to enter their biju cloaks to at least one tail. Their bodies were still adapting to the demonic chakra and that seemed to be the limit. As for the Akatsuki, Deidara the Mad Bomber, Sasori of the Red Sands, Kisame Hoshigake the Tailless-Tailed Beast, Zetsu the Infiltrator, Hidan the Immortal Jashinist and Kakuzu of 5 Hearts. They were each interested to wrap things up and collect their pay. However, they knew when to be quiet and the creepy cripple and Rinnegan Hokage were definitely reasons to stay quiet. Thanks for coming. Fugaku started simply. It is time we get started. Each of you will be conducting destabilizing operations. To start, we will make a direct strike on the Gobi. It may complicate things, but we need Iwa out of the picture so we can focus on Kumo. Won't Kumo get involved if we go back into the heart of Earth Country? I mean, I am game for some chaotic and explosive art, but Iwa is strong, Deidara said. Fugaku nodded, that is why we will offer a distraction for Kumo to deal with. Deidara and Sasori will go to the land of waves. I want the daimyo and I want the Kumo detachment dealt with. Leader Sama, rumor has it that the daimyo, Tsunami, no longer lives on the island. Zetsu informed the group. She hasn't been seen doing her regular rounds in a couple months. Fugaku clicked his teeth, but Danzo stepped in. The daimyo is simply a puppet anyway. We only wanted her as leverage against the Uzumaki. Take out the detached force and Konoha will take over that strategic position. We need to put pressure on Iwagakure so that they will be forced to come to the negotiating table. Sasori grunted, so, is this an all-out attack or a hit and run? The Kumo shinobi and whatever they have in Iwagakure will pose a significant resistance once they hear about the attack. Danzo clicked his cane on the ground, not to worry. You will have at least half a day for Uzu to respond. You will have 5 days for Kumo to respond to such an attack. Are we sure about that? Didn't we find out Orochimaru was wiped out within a day of attacking some team from Kumo? How did they respond so fast? Kakuzu cautioned. Fugaku scoffed, Kumo borders Otto and the Eagles enabled a rapid response. So, the Eagles can bring reinforcement faster too, Sasori continued Kakuzu's line of thought. Danzo growled, they would still have to send a messenger bird. That is almost a 2-day flight for such a bird from Wave to Kumo. Sasuke scoffed, let them come, or are you's rank in name only? More sacrifices for Jashin-sama, Hidan said emphatically. So, what do we get to do in Iwa? Fugaku nodded, Hidan, you and Kakuzu will create a distraction. Kisame and the Jinchuriki will be led by Sasuke and they will attack and subdue the Gobi. Kisame, I entrust you with this and you will need to be quick. Danzo nodded and stamped his cane, You will have 100 of the lesser root. They will be addressed as acolytes of the Akatski, and they are all equipped with incineration seals. This will stir the pot, but it cannot fall back on Konoha. Hi, Cripple-sama. White Zetsu said, which earned laughs from Kisame, Deidara, and Hidan. So, I can offer as many people to Jashin-sama as I want? Hidan asked enthusiastically. Fugaku scowled, this is an operation. Once the retreat is ordered, you are expected to fall back. Before then, do as you please. I would be careful if I were you, Hidan. Onoki has the dust release, and I don't think your immortality would survive that, Kakuzu cautioned. I have fought him before and it is a frightening ability. Not even my threads could survive it. Danzo was secretly hoping to be rid of the Jashinist, but he wouldn't say it aloud. The attacks will commence in 2 weeks' time at dusk. We want this synchronized to make sure that Kumo cannot respond to Iwa. Fugaku put a proud hand on Sasuke's shoulder. Son, this cannot be linked back to us. I entrust you with this operation. Complete this mission, then we can focus on the Uzumaki. This said stoically while watching the sadistic grin emerging on Sasuke's face. While looking truly deranged and evil, Sasuke responded with his lips barely cracking the smirk. Yes, father. Kumagakure. 2 weeks after Naruto's wedding, Naruto had just returned from a mission to Kirigakure where he received some bad news. He had immediately shared that news with his mother and I before he returned to the Uzumaki compound. He got a couple hours of training in with Kitsumbi, Itachi and Maya before he collapsed into the private onsen. Of course, nothing in his compound was truly private and he was joined by Itachi to enjoy the soak. So, Ruto, have you recovered from that honeymoon yet? Itachi asked with a girly giggle. Naruto chuckled as he lay his head back on the edge of the onsen while Itachi slid onto his lap. I don't even know how I'm supposed to recover from that. Wasn't R&R the point of the honeymoon vacation? Itachi stuck a hand under the water and guided Naruto into her before she began grinding her hips. You know what they say, too much of a good thing is still too much. Naruto growled huskily, says my beautiful wife that is currently riding me. Are you complaining, mister? Nope. Good, now shut up and enjoy it. Mommy is ready for her own bun. Itachi finished in a seductive whisper. She had caught the baby fever something fierce and had convinced Naruto to remove the anti-pregnancy seal at the start of the honeymoon. Naruto chuckled and used his hands to tend to Itachi's nipples. Yup, well, if it didn't take during the honeymoon. Shut it, mister. I will just keep trying until Tsunade tells me I'm good to go. Fair enough. Naruto ended the casual conversation and threw himself into the task. Maya slid the door open with a sexy pout on her face as she saw Naruto taking Itachi from behind. No fair. I want some. Itachi's pleasure-soaked eyes looked into Maya's over her shoulder. You want a baby too? 'Cause that's what's going on here, Maya-chan. Maya blushed and she looked away shyly. No, not yet.
But, I will take a clone.
As Maya was getting reacquainted with the overfull feeling, Naruto asked, so, Maya, how do you like your new team? Maya smiled, I am honored to be part of the Divine Bolts. I know it will never be the same, but, I want to look after Yuya-chan and the paranoid schizophrenic. Itachi moaned loudly as Naruto duped a load in her, just be yourself and give it time. You're a good girl and they will accept you in time. Did you get your tattoo yet? Naruto asked. And no, I will get it tomorrow. Maya replied while trying to keep her mind straight. What tattoo? Itachi asked seductively as she switched up the position to start writing. All of the DBs are getting a tattoo to commemorate Atsui. I think I will get mine on my right triceps. Naruto answered. Itachi replied as Naruto hit her spot. Ah. Maya added as the Naruto clone spurted the chakra imitation of his seed into her. As if called by the orgasmic screams, Karu plowed through the rice paper door with a panicked look on her face. This immediately cleared the minds of the couples, and they looked at her expectantly. Naruto. Wave is under attack. Naruto immediately hopped up and channeled chakra into the tattoo over his left clavicle. His combat uniform appeared on his naked body, and he looked firmly at Karu. Did I give you orders? Why haven't they called me with the beacon? Karu looked unsure, but she still maintained urgency. Don't know. We got a scroll message 5 minutes ago. I think you were distracted. Naruto shook of the shame, and he fixed a firm look on his face. Tell I am going to wave. Do we know who is attacking? Is Uzu going to send reinforcements? Karu held up a hand. Wait. It is the Akatski. Deidara and Sasori were identified, and the emergency seals have been deployed. Naruto scowled. I can't wait. The barriers won't hold up against that much firepower. Deidara especially. Karu's face hardened. I ordered you to wait. Itachi, suit up. Meet Daru in the office and you three will be the first response. Naruto turned to Itachi, 2 minutes, chi. He looked back to Karu, okay, stay here and I will flash you to his office. It is at times like this that I really wish I could transport more than 2 people. Maya broke out of her shock and pulled herself out of the onsen. She pulled Naruto's face to look directly into her eyes, don't hold back. I love you. Naruto finished the kiss with Maya and winked at her, I won't. He turned to Karu, please tell me Tsunami wasn't on the island? Karu frowned, her and Inari were visiting during a council meeting. They are safe for now. Wave Country, Ushio Village, now this is art, on. Deidara screamed excitedly as he sent a clay swallow diving towards a group of panicking civilians on the docks. He had enjoyed the first minute or two of senseless slaughter as he saw shinobi scampering around below him. After the explosion cleared, Sasori grunted, take me down. I need to get in there. I can't let you hog the show when we have such an audience. As Sasori said that a blue sheen appeared in the sky and the next volley of clay birds crashed into it and exploded midair. Deidara clicked his teeth, I hate barriers. He dug his hands into his clay pouch to form something to deal with this pesky barrier. Sasori growled, hurry up and break the damn barrier so I can get in on the show. It should be noted that after the artistic conversation with Deidara that Sasori became far more bloodthirsty. The realization that his puppets were only art when there was an audience hit him hard and there was no greater audience than a village under attack. Deidara had pulled a sizable chunk of clay from his pouch and his palms were chewing it, shaping it, and within a minute they spewed the clay out and it formed into a clay dragon. Deidara cackled madly as he hugged the dragon that was the size of a big teddy bear. Sasori watched Deidara toss the clay into the air, and it grew to the size of a true dragon after a puff of chakra smoke. Sasori couldn't help but let out a low whistle. Ah ha 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 ha. Now this is art. On. Deidara cackled loudly as the dragon dove into the barrier. The explosion that rocked Wave Country wave truly terrifying. The barrier only absorbed a percentage of the explosion, and the dusky sky was illuminated with a second sun. From a distance, the explosion looked to be nearly 300 meters in diameter and the brilliant chakra light made it difficult to see the pixelation of the barrier that had collapsed in the presence of the raw force. Luckily, Wave had done drills and the shinobi were ready for an attack. The emergency barrier was always a delaying action, and the people of Wave were trained to seek shelter during the time the barrier bought. There were multiple shelters that were much more durable and reinforced with seals and barriers scattered around the village. These shelters were now going to be put to the test. Sasori and Deidara hovered until the smoke from the massive explosion cleared. Both artists wanted to truly appreciate the explosion and they did so from their position hovering over Ushio village. After the moment of pride passed, Deidara had his bird dive through the remains of the smoke and dust cloud. As the bird cleared the smoke, both artists were disappointed by what they saw. Even though the barrier shattered, the damage to the city was minimal. In fact, the only place that was hit hard was the docks, since the seal reinforcement was weakest there. The merchant and defense vessels were rattled, and multiple sails were broken and in a state of disarray. Where is our audience? Sasori growled. Deidara grabbed his hair and screamed in disappointment, they didn't even see my art, on. It is time to blow them out of their hidey holes. Sasori lashed out with his tail and knocked away a volley of kunai that came from a guard tower that was on the edge of the village. Looks like they want to be a part of Act 2, he said madly in his growling tone laced with excitement. Sasori and Deidara then fought against an entrenched force for the next 10 minutes. They were winning the fight, but the seals and defenses provided by the tower were substantial. The training of the Kumo shinobi exceeded both of their expectations. There was surprisingly little blood spilt for the brief bout of ranked combat. Deidara was losing his patience and he was saving up for another big jutsu as Sasori used the Sandaime Kaze Kage to combat the Kumo shinobi. Suddenly, Sasori jumped up and climbed high into the sky on Deidara's clay bird as the blonde artist was ready for his next big show. Are you ready for this? Deidara shouted excitedly. This is the end of Act 2. On. Sasori was mad that Deidara's art was hogging so much of the show, but it would be his turn to have fun once the guard tower was destroyed. Deidara shaped this massive clay figurine into a fat and bloated version of himself that puffed into a figurine roughly 10 times his normal size. As Deidara released his control over the clay, the figure plummeted down towards the guard tower. Sasori's eyes caught a deep blue flash appear on the edge of the village and then he watched in amazement as a beam of lightning and water tore through the air and shredded the clay figurine. There was an explosion, but it wasn't the figurine blowing up. It was a brilliant blue chakra explosion that looked like it contained an absurd amount of Raiten chakra. The remains of the figurine crackled with electricity as it fell to the ground with a thud. "Looks like you have a dud there, Deidara the tranny bomber." A voice came from the man shrouded in blue lightning. Deidara zoomed in on the figure with his monocle and his face paled a bit. Sasori, my man, that is Ruto Maki." Sasori growled for a bit before responding, "How did he get here so fast?" "I don't know, Deidara said in agitation as he looked at the dud of an explosive that was still crackling with lightning on the ground. Then the greeting registered in Deidara's mind, and he screamed out in frustration. "I am no tranny. I will let you taste my art, Itachi whispered to Naruto and Daru leaned his head in to listen to the plan. "Ruto, you can fly so he is yours. You also have the elemental advantage. Leave Sasori to Daru and Daru, I will create the opening, you capitalize." The trip broke up with a resolute nod and Naruto summoned Virginia in a massive puff of smoke. Deidara and Sasori knew that they needed to split up, otherwise the air combat would make Sasori useless. Sasori jumped to the ground in his Hiroku puppet, and he still had chakra strings connected to the third Kage with a healthy amount of iron sand hovering around the puppet. As Naruto took off into the air, Sasori squared off against two of the strongest shinobi in Kumo. Battle in the ocean skies. Virginia soared into the sky at astounding speeds, and she swerved around, and barrel rolled over 5 clay swallows that flew through the air like bullets at the Eagle Hanyu pair. The birds sailed into the ground and peppered the landscape with high-powered explosions. Naruto continued his ascent, and he growled as Deidara attempted to fly away. His growl turned menacing as he used his chakra to provide a supportive wind for Virginia, and the bird rapidly closed the distance. "The sky is my domain, Deidara shouted over his shoulder as he released 2 handfuls of clay spiders. Naruto answered the spiders with a volley of lightning-coated kunai that were able to take out 8 of the 10 spiders. The neutralized spiders didn't detonate, but 2 spiders detonated below Virginia and made for a turbulent flight. The eagle screeched and redoubled her efforts to catch up to the slower bird. Naruto weaved through hand signs and gathered enough Raiten chakra to his palms that it became visible. He clapped his hands together and a lightning bolt traced upwards into the sky in pursuit of Deidara. Deidara felt the buildup of chakra and he instinctively barrel rolled around the inverse lightning strike. His hair stood on end and his nose picked up the overwhelming smell of ozone for a moment before he was forced to dodge another lightning strike. The 2 birds flew through the air as explosions and lightning jutsu filled the sky for nearly 5 minutes before there was a sudden lapse in the action. Naruto opened his eyes in his sage mode after the clone he had gathering Senjutsu chakra puffed into smoke. He immediately began calling on the power of the winds and clouds began forming over Deidara. The air started humming with static electricity and the mad bomber of Iwa knew that it meant nothing good for him. Lightning started flashing and thunder started booming in dark clouds as Deidara continued to climb. Deidara may be brash, but he was also smart. He knew that clouds would end if he climbed higher and he ordered his clay bird to do just that. He took a spark of lightning from the clouds as he climbed, but the bird managed to clear the cloud bank. As Deidara cleared the ominous clouds and went leveled out, he looked down in amazement on the dark clouds that were flashing with lightning and rumbling with thunder. Deidara's battle instincts flared, and he ordered his bird to barrel roll out of the way as Virginia descended with talons splayed out. As Deidara recovered from the barrel roll, he failed to notice the much smaller form of Naruto. At the last second, he jumped off his bird as a greatsword sheathed in lightning bisected his clay bird from beak to tail. Deidara flipped into a free fall as he was heading back down into the ominous clouds. Naruto banked hard and sheathed Heaven's blessing before he arced into the air and dove down after the free-falling Deidara. Naruto gathered the power of the tempest around him as he dove, and it formed into the beak of a screaming eagle. His glowing form tracked Deidara, and he saw the mad bomber pulling clay out of his pouch. Sure enough, moments later it formed into another clay bird. Deidara was able to form the bird mere meters above the cloud bank that was absolutely saturated with static electricity. He had the bird level out above the cloud bank, and he looked around in a panic. All of his instincts were flaring, and he no longer wanted to be a part of this battle in the sky. His eyes widened to saucers as he saw a tempest eagle's head descending on him with its beak open. He threw a piece of clay as hard as he could away from the bird before his bird was engulfed by the tempest eagle. The dark clouds thundered loudly as the explosion caused a temporary clearance in the clouds due to the forceful explosion. The chakra light explosion from the eagle and Deidara's clay body exploding was truly majestic in the darkened night sky. From below, the guards watching from the guard tower watched as blue lightning arced from a central focus all over the night sky. The flash of light also created a large shadow of an eagle as Virginia changed directions towards her new target. Deidara was panting heavily as he fell through the cloud bank. The explosion had sent him careening through the clouds in an uncontrolled tailspin. The mad bomber of Iwa once again dug his hands into his clay pouches and realized that he was perilously low on clay. The blonde bomber was trying to form his clay when he was caught in the talons of a massive eagle and wind blades severed his hands from his arms. Deidara screamed in pain as the eagle carried him below the storm clouds. Virginia slowed to a hover in the night sky below the blackened clouds. It didn't take long for Naruto to join her as his power kept him hovering in front of a cursing Deidara. Naruto kept the bomber in the sky so as not to endanger populace of Wave. He wanted to get some information out of the brash bomber of Iwa. Naruto's eyes glimmered electrically with power as he smirked at Deidara, who was flailing in Virginia's talons. "So, Deidara, who sent you here to attack this village?" Deidara scowled. "Go to hell, on. My art will send you there, on." Naruto chuckled and shook his head. "So, Fugaku made you loyal, eh? I didn't think someone like you would ever accept a loyalty seal." His eyes narrowed at the seal on the base of Deidara's neck. Deidara cocked his head in confusion and Naruto pointed to the back of his neck. "Damn it. That is so unartistic, on." Deidara started cackling madly as his heart started emanating chakra and his shirt disintegrated as a mouth over Deidara's heart appeared. "Nobody can control art, on. For you see, art is a blast." Deidara's body started glowing brilliantly and Naruto's eyes widened in slight panic. The amount of chakra gathering at the primary chakra core was insane and neither he nor Virginia would survive it. He forcefully unsummoned Virginia and he put his hand into a half-ram sign when a brilliant chakra light emitted from Deidara. The explosion that followed was the biggest explosion in recorded history that pushed cloud cover back nearly 3 miles. As light flashed all over the land of waves, the rain halted, clouds cleared, and noise deafened the inhabitants of the island. The brilliant white chakra light was blinding, and it halted the ongoing battle between Sasori, Itachi, and Daru. The air pressure that followed the blindingly white light was intense and it flattened the trees to the ground. Any unstable or unprotected structure was flattened, and the many barriers flashed a brilliant blue as the air pressure collided with them. As Naruto took off into the air to chase Deidara, Itachi and Daru unsheathed their blades and squared off against Sasori and his puppet. The hunched-over body of the Hiroku puppet had its tail writhing in anticipation behind it and the Sandaime Kage hardened the iron sand into a shield. A tense standoff ensued and Daru started a dialogue. "Yawn. It looks like you are surprised to see us here, Sasori of the Red Sands. Mind telling us who sent you?" Daru said lazily as he slung his cleaver onto his shoulder. Sasori and the Hiroku puppet glanced between the two attackers with anticipation. He knew how strong these two were and he wasn't sure that he would survive the ensuing fight. As doubt kicked in, a seal flared to life within the Hiroku puppet's body, and his doubts were halted in their place. Sasori growled, "You will die to my art this night." Itachi's Sharingan caught the chakra flare within the puppet body and clicked her teeth. "No use talking to a drone, Daru. Let's get this over with." Itachi closed the distance with Hiroku and was forced to dodge a lance of iron sand. She slid under the iron lance as Daru used laser circus to distract the Sandaime puppet. Itachi coated her katana in lightning and lashed out with a stab at the body of the Hiroku puppet. The steel tail blocked the katana and was pierced by the blade, but it was able to yank the katana out of Itachi's hands. Itachi let go of the katana rather than get flailed around by it and she flipped over the body of the puppet. Itachi spun in midair and loosed 2 braces of shuriken. The 20 shuriken tore through the air until they were encompassed in fireballs. The fireballs surrounded the Hiroku body before Sasori decided to just eat one of them to dodge the rest. The scorch mark on the puppet's chest set the Akatski cloak on fire before chakra strings removed the inflamed cloak. Sasori lashed out at the recently landed Itachi and Daru blocked the steel tail with his cleaver. Before the loud clang even reached Sasori, Itachi was already engaging the Sandaime Kage. The two battle danced in unison as they swapped between opponents for the next 5 minutes. The dance ended when Itachi was able to set the Sandaime on fire with the flames of Amaterasu. The black, heavenly flames began to disintegrate the puppet's torso and it burned out the puppet's core, which erased its control over iron sand. It took less than a minute before the heavenly flames to consume it entirely. The Hiroku puppet was in rough shape and the senbone launchers were empty for the most part. The iron tail was shredded to 1/3 of its normal length and there were many holes in the protective body. As the Sandaime burned, Daru's lightning-covered sword was able to deal the finishing blow to the puppeteer's outer body. He severed the front third of the body, but his keen senses were able to detect the blur that escaped from the body. Daru jumped back to Itachi's side to reset the fight. "That seal on his back is a loyalty seal. We won't get anything out of him," Itachi said with her EMS spinning. She could see so much clearer after she swapped eyes with her mother, and this was the first high-class battle to test this out. Daru grunted, that's bothersome. Before he undid the lightning on his blade and his eyes darted to the skies as he picked up the Tempest Eagle. Looks like Naruto is wrapping things up. Itachi glanced briefly into the sky and nodded with a smile on her face. I love when he uses that jutsu. The brilliant blue glow of the Tempest explosion illuminated the angelic smile with blinding light as Itachi closed her eyes and reinforced her eyelids with chakra. Sasori unsealed a scroll from his real body. It was a chakra-wood body that took the appearance of a small, red-headed teen. The scruffy red hair looked like Gaara's, but the wooden face was unnatural. While the Tempest Eagle detonated, he tossed the scroll into the air and over 100 puppets appeared in the clearing in front of the tower. Sasori sank into a battle-ready position as he got ready to perform his dance of 100 puppets. The intermittent flashes of blue light cast an eerie glow that spread tension over the battlefield. Itachi and Daru squared off, but Itachi's eyes suddenly widened as she looked into the sky. She saw a magnificent chakra light forming and she jumped over to Daru, whose senses had already detected the chakra buildup. Suddenly, a blinding light even bigger than Naruto's screaming eagle illuminated in the sky and was followed almost instantly by a roar and powerful air pressure. Itachi pulled Daru into her and a red-orange skeletal ribcage erupted around the duo. Sasori was ready to attack when Deidara activated one of his more powerful jutsu. Sasori hated the imitation of art, but it was definitely effective. The massive wave of pressure and damaging wind slammed into Sasori's puppet army and flattened damn near half of them while Sasori used the other puppets to soak the impact of the shockwave. His puppet body rattled, and the force was strong enough to send him skidding back. He really wished that he had the iron sands available to him at this point, but alas, he didn't, and his puppets were paying the price. Once the explosion cleared, a huge hole remained in the dense cloud cover of the night sky. The moonlight poured down on the battlefield and Sasori was testing his chakra strings to see how many of his puppets were still operational. Before he could get his legs back under him, he gasped as his core was penetrated by a long orange sword coming from a glowing red ethereal figure. The Susanoo that had grown around Itachi had its arm outstretched and the blade penetrated nearly the entire torso of Sasori. Itachi grunted as her chakra construct took the brunt of the explosion. The ethereal orange-red chakra flickered brilliantly as the Susanoo hid behind the shield to absorb the impact. Itachi's keen eyes saw a temporary opening bought by the distracting explosive. The puppeteer gasped as his only weak spot was devastated by a fiery chakra blade. Blood poured out of the seal that contained Sasori's brain and key organs, which caused Sasori's puppets to clatter to the ground. The puppeteer fell to his knees as his vessel was destroyed and his chakra poured out of the containment seal. Naruto shook off the effects of the blinding light as he took a knee inside a bunker. Before he could truly gather his bearings, he was tackled to the ground by a mature, pregnant woman and an 11-year-old. His toddler of a son joined the dog pile and Naruto couldn't halt the smile that broke out on his face. That was when the shockwave of the explosion hit the bunker and rattled it something fierce. Panicked cries filled the room, and he could hear Inari and Kaisa whimpering while he saw the distressed look on Tsunami's face. He pulled the three into a hug and gave Tsunami a kiss in front of nearly 50 Ushio villagers. He looked around and gave them a calming wave. "What is going on out there, Ruto?" Tsunami asked after the shock of seeing him appear faded. Naruto rubbed her back soothingly and replied loud enough for everyone to hear, "Two Akatski attacked. We got your message and came right away. I finished off the bomber and left Itachi and Daru to handle the other one." This earned a gasp from those seeking shelter in the bunker. "Are they going to be okay?" Inari asked with concern while he reached into a kunai pouch strapped to his right leg. Naruto ruffled his hair. "Sure thing, bucko. Thanks for looking after your mom and brother for me." Inari blushed bashfully before he looked up with eyes filled with naive determination. It is my job when you are away, Papa. You can count on me." This earned coos from the women in the bunker and the men looked on proudly while nodding their heads. One more ruffle of the hair and Naruto stood up. "Good, well I am counting on you. I must go check on your Aunt Itachi and Uncle Daru." "Hold it down in here." Inari snapped off a salute as Naruto placed a parting kiss on Tsunami's lips. Naruto disappeared in a blue flash and arrived at Itachi's side. All his women had Hiraishin markers and Naruto arrived at the base of the tower next to Itachi. Daru jumped into a combat position, but Itachi remained with her arms crossed as the last of her Susanoo faded. She looked over her shoulder at him with a small smile on her face. "He went out with a bang, didn't he?" Itachi said wryly. Behind Naruto, the door to the guard tower opened and the Kumo shinobi formed up around the three elites while cheering. Naruto responded to Itachi's jab. "Yeah, crazy fucker turned our fight into a dog fight. If I didn't have the eagles, I don't know how we would have finished him off." Once Virginia caught him, he activated a suicide jutsu. "How big was the explosion?" Daru scoffed and pointed up into the night sky where there was still a massive circular parting of the clouds. Get the picture? He asked in a lazy and deadpan tone. Naruto chuckled sheepishly while the shinobi laughed around him. Yeah, well, he started glowing and shit and I dipped out. I felt the blast in Sanami's bunker though. Pretty strong considering how high up we were, Itachi giggled, it sure was. The chakra buildup was nearly blinding with my Sharingan active, and it took stage 2 Susanoo to not be crushed. Naruto whistled lowly, so, I take it that was why so many of these puppets look like they just got out of a junkyard compressor? Daru scratched the back of his neck. Without Itachi, that really woulda hurt. Anyway, who is commanding officer here? A bald man of average height with a round face stepped forward. I am, Daru-sama. Report, Saitama-san, Daru said with authority. Well, they attacked from above first at 8:01 p.m. and there were multiple dead and multiple casualties. The barriers were up by 8:05 p.m., and we used the time that bought us to evacuate the casualties and get people into the bunkers. Most were able to get to shelter before the bomber blew the barrier up. According to reports collected thus far, there are 70 wounded with 33 dead. The worst damage was done to the docks and the ships. Saitama reported. Naruto stepped in. What time did we arrive? 8:12 p.m. Saitama answered. Naruto nodded. All right, begin cleanup operations. Backup is on the way from Uzu and Raikage-sama is sending another battalion to assist in cleanup and lock the island down. Itachi and I are going to scout towards Fire Country. This has Konoha written all over it even though it was only the 2 Akatski that attacked the island. Raikage's office, 5 days after attack on Wave, Naruto, Itachi and Daru reported into the Raikage 5 days after the attack on Wave Country. After chasing off the battalion of Konoha shinobi with storms and lightning strikes, Naruto returned to Ushio. They spent the week helping the citizens of Wave repair the docks and other damage to the city. Deidara's explosions were fierce, and it was implausible to cover every building and barriers. Cleaning out the harbor was probably the hardest part, but it paid to have a shinobi with a water affinity in the group. Plus, the Uzu reinforcements arrived and helped out. The Sand Sibs got some time off the island, and they got a chance to hang out with Naruto and Wave. It was nice catching up with them and some of the squads from Uzushio. They were going to remain for a month-long rotation in Wave. Hanabi, Sazumi and some of the other Konoha evacuees enjoyed some time off Uzushio as they mingled with the lively people of Wave. They were allowed off the island in much the same way that the Divine Bolts were. Uzu's whirlpools appeared to be the island's masked Anbu. In reality, they were anyone that needed to keep their public identity hidden until Konoha was dealt with. They wore dark red masks with black whirlpool markings on the cheeks. Their uniforms were the Uzumaki red vests with black long-sleeve shirts and black Anbu-style pants. They each carried katanas or wakizashis on their hips and every single one had a fuinjutsu pouch. It was only moments before appearing in Ai's office that he bid farewell to the teams. That being said, he still had 20 clones in Wave to help out where they could, so in a way, he was still there. Man, it became difficult to keep track of Naruto after the Hiraishin truly came into play. Despite that, 3 of the strongest shinobi in Kumo were reporting into Ai. After their report, they all waited for Ai to process it and reply. While Naruto walked over to his blood clone to sync up, Ai's mind was racing with the implications of the discussed information. It was a lot to take in and I didn't desire to see his peaceful life uprooted by war. He wanted to continue the prosperity. He wanted to continue spending his time with Mei and training Naruto. After watching his successor sync with his clone, he finally spoke in a solemn and serious tone. While you 3 were in Wave, Iwa suffered a serious attack. He held up his hand to stop any questions from Naruto, the only one passionate enough to interrupt him. Iwa was attacked directly by the Akatski on the same night, at roughly the same time, that you dealt with them in Wave. Iwagakure had it far worse though. They were assaulted by 4 members of the Akatski and over 100 acolytes. During the attack, Onoki was injured and Kyuuchi was killed. Naruto's face was blank, but I could see the repressed anger. Did they identify the attackers? I nodded stoically with his hands crossed under his chin. Hidan, Kakuzu, Kisame and reports of the plant creature. We got new news on the plant creature as well. Evidently, it can create clones that imitate chakra signatures, and it can implant spores that absorb chakra from shinobi. The other 3 we already have dossiers on, so we will review those. The acolytes were just high tuning to low jonin level shinobi. What was the damage, boss? Daru asked. Ai's stoic face turned into a frown. They have over 200 dead shinobi with far more wounded. They lost nearly 200 civilians before they were able to evacuate. Han, the 5 Tails Jinchuriki was also captured. Kyuubi died protecting him. Naruto let out a long and deep breath before he looked up with hardened eyes. Are we finally going to move on Konoha then? I shook his head in the negative. No, not yet. Plus, I haven't told you the worst part yet. Naruto fell silent and Daru shifted nervously. There were 4 Jinchuriki present during the attack. They couldn't be identified, but it confirms that the Akatski is using the Jinchuriki to fight. This statement earned a stunned silence from the trio, so I continued. None of them used any more than one tail, but that is to be expected of a new Jinchuriki. Naruto scowled as Hikari growled inside his mind. No, that shouldn't be possible. Sure, the 3 tails and maybe the 4 tails could be sealed into an adult, but the 6 and 7 tails shouldn't be able to. That is far too much yokai for a developed chakra system to get attuned to. I shrugged his massive shoulders. B said the same thing. That being said, Onoki reported 4 Jinchuriki and I have no reason to doubt him. Hikari had a eureka moment. It might be possible if they have the biju controlled by the Sharingan, Ruto. Naruto frowned deeply at that added bit of information. Raikage-sama, Hikari thinks that it is likely due to the influence of the Sharingan that it would be possible. I scowled at that since he hadn't thought of that possibility. So, we are going to have to deal with supped-up Sharingan eyes? Great, just great. Naruto scoffed. I am not scared of that. If they can only access one tail and they are new Jinchuriki, then they could never stand up to B, Yugito or myself. Gaara is coming along well too ever since he went to Turtle Island and the Sage's Temple. Hell, even Shukaku has mellowed out. We can match them blow for blow on the Jinchuriki front. To me, it seems like if we play this passively then all we do is hand them the initiative. Itachi followed Naruto up. Ruto is right, Raikage-sama. Right now, they are counting on us not calling their act. They are expecting the world not to blame Konoha just because the organization of Akatski seems to be composed of nuke nins. Daru mumbled, bothersome, change her name from Uchiha to Uzumaki and she becomes so bothersome. Naruto slugged Daru in the shoulder, bothersome or not, she is right. So, what's the plan, old man? I scowled. I ain't that old, young blood. Maybe it is time for another match to prove that to you. Naruto laughed at that. Oh yeah? Are you going to enforce handicaps on me again? Oh Ruto, you can't use your yokai. Oh Ruto, no tempest chains. Oh Ruto. Naruto had to duck a lightning lariat from I, and he turned to square off against his father figure. I scowled as his lightning armor stage 1 flickered around his body. Look here, brat. I held back my killing moves when we sparred as well. Naruto raised out of his combative stance. Yeah? Well, I mean, I pretty much only have moves that would kill you if they hit you. You were the one that trained me that way. I raised out of his combat-ready stance and let the lightning fizzle out. Yeah, I know. Plus, you have Sage Mode now. Anyway, times are too serious for us to risk injuring each other. Onoki is going to call for a 4-cage summit. Of course, Ao and I will go in order to put pressure on Fugaku to show up. You and Daru will come with me. What about Iwagakure? Why not make it 5 again and extend the invite list? Konoha has beef with all of us, so let's just throw it in their face. Naruto suggested. I thought about it for a bit and nodded. I will talk to Onoki and Ao about it. Ruto, I need you to be alert at all times, bud. B and Yugito will be teaming up with Anko and she has a permanent team. I can't afford to shelve them, so I created An's rank team. I know that you, Mabui and Samui are at that level, but I am going to put Itachi with you to round it out. All Jinchuriki are going to be protected at all times. Naruto suppressed his growl and nodded. What about Gaara? Temari and Kankuro are strong, but they are not rank. I am leaving that up to Kushina. For regular operations, the Sand Sibs are still off the radar. The chakra masking seals make it so that we don't have to worry about Shukaku being detected. The sensing and barrier seals make it so that they have a safe home to go to. Until open war is declared, Gaara will remain a trump card. Naruto listened to his Raikage, and he wanted to say something on behalf of his Jinchuriki brethren. You know that we are not weapons. You know that we are assets. The only thing I ask for is your trust. Let us be a part of this fight. As of right now, it looks like Kumo and Konoha are due for a duel. Let us slug it out and I promise you we won't have to worry about those baby Jinchuriki. Konoha, 7 days after assault on Iwagakure, Fugaku couldn't help but smile when he was alone in his office with Black Zetsu. He may have tipped his hand, but his force just assaulted one of the great villages and made a powerful statement. The Akatski were a fearsome force and he had it at his disposal. The results they provided, other than Deidara and Sasori, were nearly perfect. The premiere of Akatsuki's 4 Jinchuriki also went well and Sasuke, His son was becoming a true Uchiha warrior as the leader of the Akatski. The reports that Hidan took over 100 fatal blows in 1 hour made Fugaku inclined to believe in the man's immortality. Kakuzu's acquisition of Kyuuchi's Earth Heart made Fugaku believe that the man would be an unstoppable juggernaut. Kisame's power combined with Seimata made him seem unstoppable, and Zetsu was the ultimate spy and infiltrator. It was almost time for the Akatsuki's public debut as an asset of Konoha. You are doing well, Fugaku. Only 4 more and our mission will be complete. Black Zetsu said in genuine praise. Thank you, Zetsu. Your guidance has been appreciated. Fugaku replied placidly. How are you adapting to your eyes? Zetsu asked while looking into the ringed eyes of the Rinnegan. Fugaku frowned. Every time I believe I have learned something, their limitless power shows itself and humbles me. I have only gained a grasp over 3 of the 6 paths, and I am far from mastery. Zetsu's plant head nodded in a creepy fashion. It took Madara-sama many years to understand the eyes. That being said, are you ready to confront Kumo yet? Fugaku folded his hands and rested his chin. I do not know. The fact that Sasori and Deidara were so easily dispatched gives me pause. The fact that your clones were destroyed by the storms makes me uneasy as well. All I have are the reports from the shinobi that were stationed miles away. Black Zetsu half frowned while the white Goofy half smiled. It was a truly odd sight. The fact that my clones were destroyed means that it was either the boys or Deidara's wide-scale attacks. Regardless, the power of the Rinnegan should be enough to compensate. Fugaku nodded. I do not disagree. I miss my Sharingan, but these eyes hold so much power. Did Madara know how to deactivate them? You will not be able to. They do not belong to you. Since they are transplants, they will remain in an activated state, Zetsu informed the Uchiha Hokage. That is why we provided those contacts for you. They will shield the Rinnegan and make it appear as if you have your Sharingan until you actually use them. Very well, what do you think of this 5-cage summit? Should we take the opportunity to attack? Fugaku asked. Zetsu shook his head. If you attack now, then we can no longer deny the Akatsuki is working for Konoha. I agree with Danzo that it is not yet time. We need to locate the Ichibi and the Kyuubi before we can make our true debut. Should I even attend then? We stand much to lose if it goes south. Fugaku asked, sincerely looking for advice. Zetsu remained silent and thought over his options before responding. I agree with Danzo, we need to make an appearance. If they draw us into war, then we move and crush the weak links. Kiri is not a true threat, and we could divert Kumo's attention to their ally. Iwa is recoiling from the attack and the successor to the Kage title is dead. Wave, while defended, would fall to an all-out assault. Their alliances make them weak if we attack without restraint. Fugaku nodded before he rose up out of his seat. In the event I do attend, please go and scout the designated meeting place in Iron Country. I must attend another meaningless council meeting filled with sniveling whiners. Zetsu snickered as he phased into the floor. Enjoy your wife. Ever since she confirmed the pregnancy, she is even more of a banshee. This comment made Fugaku freeze and flinch. He really despised that woman and her daughter. Both of his sons' wives were truly useless kunoichi. He shook off the thoughts and regained his composure. At least the other concubines that were with his children weren't so annoying. Danzo simply gave him women that proved they could be powerful kunoichi that would provide a more powerful generation of Uchiha. That was, at least, something. Within the council chambers, Fugaku told the council about the Akatsuki's attacks on Wave and Iwa. He maintained an impassive visage and wanted to simply monitor how the clan heads responded to the events. It was their analytical eyes and skepticism that made him nervous, but he hid this behind his impassive mask. As he concluded his report, he opened the floor for discussion. Hokage-sama, we must attend the summit and denounce this organization. The fact that they have 4 Jinchuriki, now possibly 5, makes them a dire threat, Shikaku said lazily while his ingenious eyes watched Fugaku's reaction. Homura drew the attention to himself. I agree. We can use this time of unrest to stake our claim on the Jinchuriki. The Uzumaki boy should have been ours, and this presents the proper forum to state our demands. If they want our assistance versus this Akatsuki, then we can demand him as the price of our cooperation. This seemed to stir the greedy minds of the civilian council while the shinobi council looked dubious. Kushina would sooner cut your head off and throttle your body before she let her son return to Konoha, Sume said sarcastically. I would highly advise against that demand, Hokage-sama. Kuza chuckled at Sume. Indeed, that would be more likely to cause war than avoid one. Danzo clicked his cane. Konoha is in need of such strength. I do not find it unreasonable. We can tie his inheritance to his return. Hyashi raised an eyebrow. What inheritance? The Uzumaki and Namikaze compounds were destroyed. The Hokage vault was raided. There is no inheritance, other than money, that we can offer. They don't know that, Koharu said snidely. Do you believe them stupid or incompetent? Shikaku asked. Because I see a formidable enemy that has raised Kumo to the strongest and most influential hidden village. They didn't do this by power or fear, but by entrepreneurial spirit and by redefining the status quo. No money, power, women or anything you dangle in front of him would make the Uzumakis or Kumo accept that offer. Shikaku was done with this foolish line of thought and he wanted to lay it to rest already. Fugaku listened to Shikaku and agreed with his assessment. The man may be lazy, but he is an absolute genius. Maybe he could use it as something to rile the Kages up when he needed a distraction. I agree, let's move on from that line of thought. What are your thoughts on the Akatski and what should our response be? Mibuki stood up. Husband, I may be a civilian, but I don't see any need for us to get involved. We are free of our demons, and it is not our problem. The civilians muttered their agreement to this statement. Quuz opposed something. If we do not partake, then we further ostracize ourselves from the other villages. The Akatski is a universal enemy that could unite the great villages. This could be something that could move us past old grudges. Shibi Aburame pushed his glasses up. Quuz-san is right. This is an opportunity for Konoha to gain standing as a leader in the shinobi world once more. Logic dictates that any rogue organization using the power of the biju is a risk to Konoha. Fugaku nodded his head. That would be the case if he weren't the head of the organization. This is why he could never trust anyone outside of the most loyal Uchiha with this secret. Your logic is solid, Shibi. However, I do not see the need to risk our strength and the lives of our shinobi for a fight that isn't ours. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed at the thin line that Fugaku was walking. The man was clearly up to something and Hiruzen trusted him less and less with each passing day. We are shinobi, we risk our lives every day. What do we know of the Akatski, and do we have any intelligence on where they reside? Jiraiya stepped forward to play his part as the spymaster. After everything that happened with the Uzumaki, and the subtle and repeat influence of the Sharingan, Jiraiya was in Fugaku's camp. Intelligence points to Iwagakure. Back after the Second War, I trained 3 children that were opposed to Hanzo. They led an organization by the same name, Akatski. The Jonin sensei of Ame's teams during the Chunin exams were actually those children grown up. I recommend we put pressure on Ame in an attempt to draw them out. Isn't Ame allied with Kumo? Koharu asked. Didn't we get intelligence about Hanzo's daughter, the girl from said Chunin exams, marrying Naruto Uzumaki? Jiraiya nodded. That is confirmed. There seems to be an unspoken alliance there. Wouldn't that mean that those 2 nations have all but the Ichibi? Could they possibly have the Ichibi too? Shikaku asked while sitting fully alert in his seat. His eyes were wide with the implications. The council responded to this in a nervous fashion too. Fugaku didn't think of that angle, but it served as a distraction. However, if that were the case, then Konoha would be doomed. He didn't realize that the implied threat created may be too great for people to willingly stand against. The looks of fear made Fugaku think that this was a step too far. We do not know this for sure. Ame is still isolationist and we have never been able to penetrate their borders. For now, we can point the finger at Ame, Fugaku said with finality. Meeting of Ame, Kumo and Uzushio. 3 nights before Kage Summit, Naruto used his Hiraishin to make a meeting possible that could easily slide under the radar. Hanzo, being the pragmatist and fearsome leader he was, knew of the invaluable resource that the Hiraishin represented. It wasn't even its combat prowess that made it so fearsome. It was the potential to be anywhere in the world in a flash. That was a paradigm shifter that could rock the elemental nations. It was this paradigm shift that allowed Kushina, Naruto, Hanzo, Yahiko, Konan and Nagato to have a meeting. Things were coming to a head and Hanzo knew it was about time for Iwagakure to come out of its isolationist policies. Thus, Hanzo hosted the conversation within his classy study, and he began the serious conversation after the pleasantries were over. So, you are going to this summit in Iron Country. What is your true goal for this meeting? Sure, Onoki knows that Konoha is pulling the strings by now, Hanzo said in his usual gruff voice. I took a sip of his drink before responding. What I am about to tell you cannot be shared needlessly. We had a messenger from Makai, the land of demons. The Sage of 6 Paths originally took the leader of the 9 greatest clans of Makai and divided the Kyuubi's chakra between the demons. We only call them demons because they are a longer-lived race from a different world. Of course, they have much denser chakra than we do, which caused humans to fear them and resulted in their capture. Naruto took over here, since the biju were sealed. Ever since Madara took control of the Kyuubi for the first time, the link to Makai was severed. Before, It was as easy for them to travel to this world as the animals of the summoning realm. However, something severed that connection. When my father made the contract with Hikari, she was able to send him to that realm at the cost of his life. He created a portal, and we had a visitor come through. Since then, we have worked to create a more stable portal to reconnect with the great clans. Hanzo took in the information stoically, but it was the passionate Yahiko that responded first. Wow, that is a lot to take in. So, is there a reason you are telling this to us? Naruto nodded. The kitsune that came through arrived in Konoha. He sensed something was wrong when he found the destroyed compounds and he did some snooping. He brought us proof that Akatski was being maneuvered from the darkness of Konoha. Fugaku and Danzo seemed to be leading the organization from the shadows. Kushina, I and Naruto let the others process this information in silence. They exchanged looks with one another that said everything that need be said with a single glance. Finally, Hanzo spoke. Why tell us this now? Kushina took this question, because now it is coming to a head, and I think Ame will be involved. Why would Ame be involved, Kushina-sama? Nagato asked respectfully. Because I don't think it was a mistake that they took your former organization's name. I think they will take this opportunity to misdirect, and I wanted to know what you thought of it, Hanzo Dono. Kushina answered. Hanzo mulled this over. What is Onoki wishing to do? Have you informed him of this information? I fielded this one, not this exactly. We have told him about intelligence reports that point to Konoha. I think he believes us, and this attack should convince him of it. The fact that Wave was attacked simultaneously should make that much obvious. And what of Kiri? Konan asked. I blushed at this one. Well, my marriage to Mei makes that a pretty concrete alliance. Ao is on our side, and we are working together to cement the alliance. Hanzo wrinkled his brow. Why would they make enemies of the whole shinobi world? What gives them such confidence? Surely it isn't only a couple Jinchuriki. Kushina frowned and scoffed at this. The pride of the Uchiha cannot be underestimated. Their eyes are strong, but they fill them with a sense of pride and arrogance. Plus, they believe that. We do not know this information and they don't know that we are close enough to trust each other with it. Hanzo nodded. Very well, if they attempt to point the finger in our direction, then I would ask you to vouch for us. I believe the desired outcome is to isolate Konoha and pin the blame on them. They have gone too far, and it is time to put them in their place. I nodded with a smirk. I was thinking the same thing. That being said, Kushina, why don't you ask Hanzo what you wanted to ask him? Kushina smiled towards Nagato. You are a trusted member of Iwagakure and you are an Uzumaki. I wanted to invite you to be my guard so that Ame is not truly left out of these deliberations. Hanzo gave an appreciative look to Kushina and turned to Nagato. I would like you to go. I trust you with this task and I will expect a full report. Nagato stood and bowed deeply at the waist. It will be done. Iwagakure, Kage Tower. 2 days before Kage Summit, Naruto flew into Iwagakure on the back of Virginia and made no aggressive moves as he dismounted the bird and was surrounded by golem guards. He waited patiently with his mask on and hands up until he was escorted to the Kage Tower. He remained surrounded by 8 golem guards as he walked to the front of Onoki's desk. The old man's head was still covered in bandages and Naruto saw his right shoulder was bandaged as well. Naruto stood in place and bowed. Greetings, Tsuchikage Dono, I apologize for my unannounced arrival. I offer my sincere condolences for the loss of your son and all of the casualties from that cowardly attack. I come with a message from the Raikage for you. I ask for privacy, and I am willing to have my chakra sealed to get a private audience with you. Onoki looked at the boy analytically and waved his hands. The golem guards disappeared, which left Kurotsuchi and Akatsuchi, the children of Kyuubi, in the room. I believe you know my grandson and granddaughter. I will give you this audience, but I request they stay here. Naruto nodded and he waited for Onoki to activate the silencing seals. Do you wish for me to share the memories with all 3 of you or just yourself, Onoki Dono? Onoki cocked his head to the side. You can share memories? Naruto undid his transformation, which got a funny reaction from Kurotsuchi and Akatsuchi shifted nervously. I am not a Kitsune Hanyu for no reason. Now, all 3 of you? Onoki nodded and Naruto shared the memories of Kitsumbi snooping in Konoha, of his meeting with Kitsumbi and the battle in Wave Country. The 3 saw the couple hours worth of memories in 15 minutes and Onoki frowned deeply. Kurotsuchi was on the verge of an outburst and Akatsuchi remained shuffling agitatedly. Finally, Onoki spoke to Naruto. My boy, that was a lot to take in. That being said, I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I just accepted those as memories and not illusions. What assurances can Kumo provide that you are being genuine? Naruto frowned slightly at that. Onoki Dono, I do not know how much further I can go. I came here in good faith to let you know what you were walking into. Konoha has been up to no good for the past 3 years and everything is coming to a head. That being said, I will ask this. Past the agreement I made with your deceased son, what assurances do you want from me? Onoki's eyes sparkled, and he couldn't wait to see the reaction of the youngsters. This was out of left field, but as soon as the idea implanted itself in his old brain, he couldn't dislodge it. The way I see it, you are bound by marriage and family to each of Kumo's allies. Is this true? Naruto nodded hesitantly, really not liking where this was going. Then, I wish for a marriage contract between my granddaughter, Kurotsuchi-chan, and yourself. While Naruto looked at him blankly, Kurotsuchi freaked the hell out. What in the actual fuck, Gramps? Have you finally gone senile? What in the... Akatsuchi put his massive hands on Kurotsuchi's shoulders. Relax, little sister. This is a good idea. Kurotsuchi looked at him incredulously, but Onoki cut her off. Kuro-chan, please be silent. Iwagakure has been weakened and an alliance of marriage between Iwa and Kumo would benefit us greatly. Naruto sighed and rubbed his face. Are you aware that there are other respectable males in Kumo? I recently married 7 women at once. That isn't even considering her own feelings on the matter. Kurotsuchi put her hands on her hips and took a sassy stance. What, am I not good enough for you? Naruto looked at Kurotsuchi with weary eyes while Hikari laughed her ass off within the mindscape. Of course, the kitsune opened the link to let him hear her laughter. Princess, do you know that I recently married 7 beautiful women? Do you know that, as the heir of the Uzumaki clan, that my mother asked me to repopulate the Uzumaki with my clan sisters? Do you know how, even with my Hanyu blood, do you know how exhausting it is to keep so many women pleased? Kurotsuchi's, Onoki's and Akatsuchi's jaw dropped. While Onoki burst backward with a nosebleed and Akatsuchi toppled over, Kurotsuchi looked at Naruto incredulously. Are you serious? Naruto nodded wearily. It is a great honor and responsibility. I love each of my wives with all my heart and I work hard every day to let them know that. I informed you of this to let you in on my perspective. I think you are a beautiful girl and I know that you are strong. However, it wouldn't be fair to you to throw you into the mix now. How do you feel about that? Kurotsuchi blushed and shuffled nervously. I guess it makes me curious. At Naruto's dumbfounded look, she explained, I would like to know how you keep so many women happy and loyal. Naruto nodded and filled the room with shadow clones. I create clones every day to stay present in their lives and keep them happy. Let me tell you, it is a lot of work. Every day I get the memories of at least 100 days. That would honestly be a light day for me. As I said, I love my girls, but I would be lying if I said it were easy. Not to mention, my second child is due next week. Kurotsuchi blushed and remained contemplative as she fidgeted nervously until Onoki and Akatsuchi recovered consciousness. Onoki shook out the cobwebs and looked at the room full of Narutos. Uzumaki-san, why is the room full of your clones? Naruto sighed. She asked me how I kept all of my girls happy. This made Onoki and Akatsuchi blow back with bigger nosebleeds than before. Rather than wait respectfully, Kurotsuchi slapped them awake while berating them for being perverts. It took a couple minutes and Naruto got to watch the ancient Tsuchikage get beaten by his granddaughter. After a couple minutes, the room settled back down, and Naruto dispelled his clones. Onoki regained his composure, despite the fresh lumps on his head. We will table that offer for now. Iwa needs these 2 for stability anyways. So, why did you share this information with us, Uzumaki-san? Onoki said back in cage mode. To help you avoid any misdirection from Konoha's part. I also want you to be aware that this could very well be a trap. Konoha aggressive attack on Iwa and Wave tells us that they are nearly ready to move. It might be time for the struggle to come out of the shadows, which would make for a dire situation, Naruto said seriously. Onoki frowned and analyzed Naruto for a little bit. You know we took a hit, I will not deny that. What would you ask of Iwa? Naruto nodded at the obvious admission. Honestly, we just need you to hedge Konoha in. Our fighting force is more than capable of matching them. Even with them having 4, possibly 5, Jinchuriki? Onoki asked dubiously. Our report said they only used 1 tail, was that accurate? Naruto asked and Onoki nodded sternly. Then yes, we will be just fine. We have several shinobi that are capable of handling such foes. Plus, chakra seals can easily sever the links to their biju's chakra. Furthermore, this is just speculation, but we believe that each of the Jinchuriki are Uchiha. We believe this because it is the only likely explanation for how they were able to force submission of the biju. Why do you think the biju are being forced? Akatsuchi asked in a nasally voice. Because the 3 of us in Kumo have perfect relationships and partnerships with our biju. Not to mention, One of my wives is the Kyuubi no Kitsune. I believe that qualifies me to speak on this. Naruto answered plainly, which earned more dumbfounded reactions. Oh, okay, we will take your word for it, Onoki said dubiously. Naruto beamed a smile. Good, now, I will return to Kumo. Y'all have a great day. With a goofy smile and casual wave, Naruto disappeared from the Tsuchikage's office in a blue flash. This, of course, caused the three in the Tsuchikage's office to faint in unison. That was the final straw that overloaded their already strained brains. 5 Kage Summit, Naruto, Daru, Kushina, Nagato and Mikoto stood in the Raikage's office as they were preparing to depart for the 5 Kage Summit. Unlike the other villages, they had a much easier trip that would only last a couple hours with the aid of the Eagle Summons. Thus, they were getting themselves together and planning out their final approach to the meeting. The meeting would start tomorrow morning, but everyone was expected to check in by sundown. As Virginia and Montana flew through the air, the two trios talked and mingled. It was a pleasant journey and Naruto got the chance to catch up with Nagato and He honestly needed the time to catch up with the old man because the only interaction Naruto really had with were through the blood clone. As they flew, Nagato a chance to see the interaction between the two. Hey Pops, how are things going with Mei? Enjoying the married life? And while we are at it, Nagato, what's the sitch with you? Naruto asked. I chuckled and ruffled Naruto's hair. Mei is a beautiful woman, and we are happy together. Your mother has been more than gracious with our situation. And I would like to know as well, Nagato-san. I mean, my boy here was left alone to repopulate the clan, so, what's the deal with you? I added at the end to razz the other Uzumaki. Nagato blushed and shifted nervously on Virginia's back. Well, it's not standard but it is all I have ever known. Yahiko, Konan and I share everything together, including our love. They were my best friends since we were 3 and all we ever had was each other. Naruto shrugged. Mei, no judgment there. I am surprised the Hattori girls aren't all over you. Oh, Nagato said blankly. They are. This made Naruto and I break out in laughter. So, Pops, when can I expect a little brother or sister from you? Naruto asked to give his cousin a break. I shrugged his massive shoulders. I don't know, Bubba. It's not for a lack of effort, I will tell you that much. Naruto elbowed Ai in the gut. I can imagine. She is very much like her daughter. Naruto ended in a perverted giggle. I smirked at that. You know the rumors about your treatment of the girls is fast surpassing legend status and putting you in the realm of the gods. Your blood clone has admirers stalking it whenever you are out of the village. I know. Naruto deadpanned. I get the memories. Then, the old fence sitter has the audacity to throw his granddaughter at me. I laughed loudly and Nagato chuckled. Nagato spoke on behalf of the two. Well, he did raise a good point. You have marriages linking you to each ally except Iwa. Naruto huffed while Hikari laughed internally. They aren't allies. They are a neutral and non-aggressive state. I shrugged. Not if you married the girl. You already have 7 wives, 4 sisters, multiple women in need of a sperm donor and I am sure it won't end there. What's one more? I finished with the cheekiest grin he could muster. Naruto slugged Ai in the shoulder hard enough to dislodge him from Virginia. The middle-aged Kage plummeted through the air until Virginia swept below him and he landed unceremoniously on her tail. He scowled at the laughing Uzumakis and the laughs coming from Georgia. Naruto returned Ai's cheeky grin at this point. Naruto's grin fell and he began his tirade. Maybe it is time someone else took one for the team then. I barely know the girl and I am more than happy with what I got. While you only have to keep Mei happy, I have memories and exhaustion from no less than 20 orgasms each night. Think about that before you carelessly throw another one into the mix. Pops, I sighed. Very well, Bubba. I can manage that. Alright, business mode, we are here. Naruto nodded and his face turned to marble. Got it. Nagato, you are a good censor, right? Nagato nodded. Yes, it was one of the gifts of our blood. I will keep my senses open. I will back you up with Sage Mode, Naruto said as he focused on the winds and the energy in the air. Virginia, can you prepare the scouts when you return to Appalachia? I want eyes in the air at all times while we are here. Sure thing, Ruto-sama. Virginia replied cheekily to razz her summoner. As they entered the land of iron, Nagato, Naruto and the rest kept their senses up to look for anything off. They couldn't sense any shinobi chakra signatures at this time, which was slightly reassuring. Virginia descended to the outskirts of Senkato village, and everyone dismounted in from of a platoon of samurai guards. I and Kushina checked in the entourages and were informed that everyone else was already checked into the hotel. Konoha opted to stay in a separate hotel in order to avoid any conflict before the official proceedings could begin. Zetsu was watching the village and he had clones all over the place. The 400 clones were stationed underground as a last resort. Zetsu believed it wasn't time to tip their hands, but with the operation in Kiri it might come to that. Zetsu believed that it was a bad idea for Fugaku to agree to this meeting because he stood very little to gain from it. That being said, if shit did hit the fan, then it would be an amazing show. As Zetsu was watching over the village, his clones were spreading to relevant locations. He wasn't surprised that the Kumo shinobi applied a protective barrier over the hotel, but he could still spread his spores on the samurai. As the clones were working, Zetsu needed to phase in the ground to avoid 2 sets of wind blades that soared down from the sky. This drew Zetsu's attention upwards, and he saw roughly 15 smaller-sized eagles hovering in the air over the village. This would create issues. After Arkansas ran off the plant creature, Delaware notified Naruto about the presence of the creature. This was the first indication that things weren't what they seemed, and it meant that the Akatski scout was here. This didn't spell good things and he notified the Kages of it. He took a minute to greet Haku and Chojuro who were escorting out of the summit. After leaving the meeting, Naruto returned to his room and attempted to get some sleep. The night's rest was uneasy, and everyone agreed that tomorrow would be interesting. Naruto spent the night within the mindscape with Hikari. She could always calm him down and reassure him. With her by his side, Naruto feared almost nothing. The only thing he ever feared was the loss of a loved one, and each of his allies qualified as a precious person to him. The 2 kitsune cuddled into each other and intimately intertwined her tails as they fell asleep. Within the presence of one another, nothing could ever go wrong. The group awoke at 8 a.m. and enjoyed a nice breakfast provided by the Samurai Hotel before the set-off for the fort that was on the outskirts of Senkato village. As the group passed squads of samurai, they marveled at the 3 wolf-head mountains that provided the backdrop scenery for the quaint samurai town. Despite the beauty of the wintry country, everyone noticed that the samurai were on full alert. They counted no less than 200 patrolling the town, and that wasn't even counting the full battalion that was stationed at the fort. After checking in with the samurai captain, the group of Kages and their escorts were guided to a meeting room on the top floor of the tower. Before entering the room, each person was greeted by Mifune, and it was clear that the samurai general was a man of great stature and power. Upon entering the room, everyone saw 6 distinct banners hovering over the 6 seats. That would be represented in the summit: earth, lightning, fire, water, whirlpool, and iron. Behind the main seats were 2 seats for the guardians to sit behind the banners. Konoha was not present yet, but Onoki, Kurotsuchi and Akatsuchi were already in their places. They gave the newcomers small and respectful bows as they took their places. They had to wait another 20 minutes for Fugaku to walk into the room with Jiraiya and Sasuke Uchiha. Figures the bastard would only bring those loyal to him. He must not want the dirt getting out into the open air of Konoha. Mifune entered the chamber and stood in front of his chair with his arms folded behind his back. "Thank you all for coming. I am Mifune, Samurai General and leader of Iron Country. I will act as the impartial mediator of this summit, and I ask that you respect my calls. Any acts of aggression will result in expulsion from my countries and sanctions will be enforced. Any activation of jutsu will result in the same. Are there any questions?" Mifune looked around the room and saw nobody speaking up. "Very well. Tsuchikage Dono called for this meeting after the terrorist attack on Iwagakure no Sato. I now yield the floor to Onoki, Sandaimate Tsuchikage of Iwagakure." Onoki stood up and looked with stern eyes around the room. He provided a summary of the attack that included all relevant information on the Akatski and included the total fatality list. His eyes locked on Fugaku's impassive gaze multiple times throughout the recounting, and when it came to an end, Onoki was starting to get heated. He paused briefly, cleared his throat and glared at Fugaku. "We have reason to believe that the Akatski organization is being controlled by Konoha." The venom in the word Konoha was enough to make Mifune flinch. Fugaku remained impassive and weaved his fingers together. He casually placed his chin on his hands and looked back at Onoki impassively. "Your proof?" he challenged simply. Onoki scowled deeply and Akatsuchi was forcibly restraining Kurotsuchi. "Kumo, Kiri and Uzushiagakure have issued sworn statements under a blood contract that they did not perform the attack. Additionally, Fire Country borders wave and they were attacked on the same night as Iwa by 2 members of the Akatski." It was too early to give up the jig, but Onoki was rapidly losing his cool. Fugaku waved an airy hand in front of him. "Conjecture. In fact, I believe that I have some relevant information. The origins of the Akatski organization stem from Rain Country. In fact, my guard, Jiraiya of the Sanin, trained the leaders of said organization. I believe that is far more reliable intelligence." Kushina coughed and interrupted. "I think not. Nagato-kun, will you step forward and enlighten the summit, please?" After Nagato got permission from Mifune, he stepped forward and bowed to the cage. Indeed, me and my 2 friends were trained by Jiraiya. We formed a resistance against Hattori Hanzo to end the violence in Ame. Years later, we came to an agreement with Hanzo and the Akatski was no more. It should be noted that Shimura Danzo attempted to involve himself in reign, and that was the reason for our allegiance to Hanzo-sama. For the past 12 years, we have each trained under Hanzo. Your baseless accusations will get you nowhere. With that, Nagato bowed and returned to his position behind Kushina. Fugaku waved it off. Well, unless anyone has proof, then we are just diddling with our kunai. However, I have real and substantial business with Kushina Uzumaki and Naruto Uzumaki. Both of them are traitors to Konoha and I demand justice. I and Onoki silenced themselves at a mere look from Kushina. Mifune sweat down the back of his collar at the pressure that suddenly enveloped the room, and he simply bowed his head to allow Kushina to speak. You have no claim to me, my son or my village. You are a coward and a cheat. Should you push this any further? Kushina left the threat hanging. Then the non-aggression pact with Kumo will be nullified and we will release the information we have withheld. I finished the threat and spelled it out. Mifune looked to Fugaku, whose impassive gaze had just cracked slightly. I have every right. The boy stole our biju. He is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune who belongs to Konoha under the armistice treatise of Lord Hashirama Senju that all 5 villages signed onto. Furthermore, Kushina Uzumaki was a Konoha shinobi that faked her own death and is guilty of multiple counts of treason. Kushina just smiled glibly at Fugaku. Are you an idiot? She just let that hang there while Fugaku scowled. Mifune coughed. Do you have evidence to the contrary, Uzumaki Dono? Kushina turned and offered Mifune a bright smile. I was transferred as an active Uzushio shinobi to Konoha to become the 2nd Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Part of that agreement was dual enrollment and citizenship between Konoha and Uzushio. In addition, you violated the terms of the agreement when you attempted to assassinate me on multiple occasions. You further violated any said agreement when you allowed your villagers to kill my son. As he never swore allegiance to Konoha and seeing as how he died within your custody, you can shove your petition up your ass. Watch your mouth, you filthy Uzumaki slut. Sasuke growled and Jiraiya stepped away from the idiotic Uchiha with a death wish. Hey, fatherfucker, no talking without permission. Unlike your pathetic and traitorous village, nobody outside of Konoha gives a flying fuck about your family name. Naruto chirped while leaning back in his seat. Guys like Sasuke were so easy to read and rile up. Sasuke growled but held himself back at the stop signal from his father. Fugaku responded to Kushina's revelations. Regardless, it is clear that the boy lives and he is property of Konoha. I growled and tapped his hand on the desk hard enough to shake it violently. No, he is not. In fact, it is Konoha that owes the Uzumaki Namikaze clans. We submitted the paperwork with proof of heritage and claim of inheritance. Needless to say, our investigators discovered that you stole the boy's rightful inheritance and both the Uzumaki and Namikaze compounds were destroyed while under your protection. You have no claim to the boy and nothing to offer him. Furthermore, any claim to the counter is considered an act of aggression. Fugaku scowled but pivoted instead. Then I counter with Kushina's crimes. Her crimes of treason are incontrovertible. After leaving Konoha, she immediately allied with Iwagakure and violated her oath. Mifune coughed into his hand. Uzumaki Dono, Hokage Dono has a just claim here. Do you have any proof that the contract was violated? Furthermore, you claimed your son died but we are all aware of his life and accomplishments. Kushina bowed lightly to Mifune. As for my supposed treason, this man tried on multiple attempts to kill me through direct and indirect means. He works with Shimura Danzo, the leader of Root, the shinobi with the blank Onbu mask with knee on them. I killed no less than 100 of these shinobi over the years as they attempted to kill me to isolate my son. You may be asking yourself why he would allow such a thing. The answer is simple: I denied him the right to my son. After I did so, he repeatedly allowed or organized beatings of my son. Between my son's 4th and 5th birthdays he was beaten multiple times and required treatment from the hospital on 54 separate locations. I will submit the documentation of events that was verified by multiple sources, and I will submit the original medical documents for review. No village that allows such a thing deserves my loyalty or allegiance. In fact, Fugaku should be grateful that I didn't burn the village to the ground before I left or during the invasion. The room listened in rapt attention to Kushina. The Uchihas scowled. Jiraiya ducked his chin to his chest in shame and the rest of the room looked with animosity towards Fugaku. Mifune looked around the room and took the measure of it. He believed that Konoha was in the wrong, but there had been no hard evidence submitted yet. Before he could request evidence, Fugaku asked the next question. You claim I killed your son. How is he alive? Do you deny that the boy is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki? Kushina's eyes narrowed, and she unleashed some ki since she was no longer able to restrain it. The Uzumaki clan has artifacts and powers that need not be shared in detail with the likes of you. One such artifact grants the Uzumaki the right to deal with the Shinigami. I resurrected my son and took him away from your accursed rule in exchange from the Kyuubi. He is no longer the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and you have absolutely zero proof to the contrary. I backed Kushina up, and he wasn't technically lying. Hikari simply lives within Naruto for the time being. His power is his own and he rarely, if ever, pulls on Hikari's power. Kushina speaks the truth. The boy has been my apprentice for nearly 10 years. He has never used powers that are associated with Jinchuriki. Mifune sighed and rubbed his temples. I would like to petition for a 2-hour break. I will meet with each Kage in private and allow submission of any evidence that could back up your claims. Onoki coughed. Mifune Dono, I do not believe it wise for you to meet with Sharingan users alone. I recommend taking guards with you and additional precautions if you wish to move forward with this. I concur with Tsuchikage Dono, Ao said plainly. I concur, Kushina added. As do I said. Agreed, Fugaku growled. The 2-hour break went by without many disturbances. Everyone avoided the Uchiha and Jiraiya was turned away by the Kumo and Uzumaki contingents. He took it hard when Nagato glared at him and called him a traitor to his own teachings. It was yet another crack to Jiraiya's confidence and ego. When Haku returned his perverted comments with Ice Senbone, Jiraiya's spirits were completely broken once more. After the allotted time period ended, the Kages and their escorts returned to the chamber. Mifune cleared his throat after everyone settled down and silence settled over the chamber. Before we discuss evidence, does anyone wish to form a temporary alliance and task force with the dedicated purpose of countering the Akatski? I raised his hand. Kumo will participate. Iwa will offer its support. Uzushiagakure will offer a team. Kirigakure will participate in the alliance. Everyone's head turned to Fugaku. Konoha will abstain. We have no Jinchuriki and I see no need to shed my shinobi's blood for such a purpose. Mifune stood. Very well, as leader of Iron Country, I will offer my support to this alliance. Once our business with Konohagakure is finished, we can commence planning. He got nods from heads around the table and it looked like Jiraiya had enough wherewithal to realize this was a bad decision from Fugaku. As for the matter of the Uzumaki's betrayal of Konohagakure, I find them not guilty. After reviewing the evidence, it was clear that the agreement between Uzushiagakure and Konohagakure was violated. In regard to the Kyuubi, there was no evidence provided that Uzumaki Naruto is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Fugaku scowled and slammed his hands on the desk, which caused the room to tense up. This summit is a sham. It is clear that they have allied against Konoha's interests. Mifune scowled at Fugaku. In regard to the Akatski, Iron Country recognizes the evidence submitted by the Raikage and Uzukage that L finds Konohagakure guilty of colluding with the Akatski. For your actions taken. Before Mifune could continue, all hell broke loose. Naruto nearly froze as Fugaku's eyes activated and he got a clear glimpse of the Rinnegan. As Fugaku raised his hands and gathered chakra, Naruto summoned a wall of chains in front of Ai and his mother. Before the barrier could be completely effective, an immense gravitational force slammed into the chains and dispersed them before they could truly take form. When Kushina saw Fugaku stand, she had a similar reaction to her son. He golden chakra chains flared to life and attempted to create a barrier. Years of experience made her barrier more effective, but they couldn't absorb the entire that followed Fugaku's whisper of Shinra Tensei. This translates to universal push. The gravitational force rattled her rapidly assembled chain barrier and shattered it after 3 seconds of heavy impact. Kushina was sent tumbling through the shattered walls of the council room. I immediately activated his lightning armor to counter the impact and he saw the barrier of chakra chain spring up in front of him. Despite that, he was sent flying through the chamber's walls and a couple walls after that. Due to his lightning armor, the damage received was minimal and he was the first to charge back into the chamber to engage the Hokage. The other Kages were stunned by the display. Onoki was on the edge of the path and Akatsuchi's earth barrier followed by Kurotsuchi's lava barrier were enough to withstand the impact. The fighting ensued so quickly that the 10 seconds the Iwa contingent remained behind the barrier may as well have been a lifetime. Despite that, they would be more than happy to get into the fight and extract their pound of flesh. Sasuke followed up his father's decisive action by unsheathing his Chikudo and attacking the Kiri guards. He remembered his grudge against Haku, and he wanted nothing more than to prove himself against 2 members of the 7 swordsmen. His initial strike was countered by the Hiram Kare as a determined Chojuro stopped the blow meant for Haku. Jiraiya pulled Sasuke back before he could be skewered by the new Abari wielded by Haku. Ao engaged Jiraiya despite knowing he was outgunned. I charged into the chamber encased in his stage 3 lightning armor and he tore through the wall on a direct path for Fugaku within 5 seconds of the initial attack. He was moving so fast that he wasn't ready for Fugaku to hold a hand up towards his charge. His momentum no longer remained in his control as he was pulled by a powerful pull that followed the whisper of Banshu Tenin. I flew towards Fugaku's outstretched hand at blinding speeds and eyes widened when he processed a black chakra rod materializing from Fugaku's palm. Kushina recovered quickly and saw Ai's predicament. Her chakra chains lashed out. 2 blunted chains pushed Ai and altered his trajectory while 2 chains attempted to skewer Fugaku. Fugaku jumped backwards amidst the debris of the shattered council room. As he was still in the air, the first Zetsu clone emerged from the floor and added to the chaos of the fight. Fugaku knew that he needed to order the retreat and he issued the orders amidst the chaos to Jiraiya and Sasuke. Naruto recovered quickly and crackled into his lightning armor as Hikari rapidly told him about the Rinnegan that they just saw. Naruto could care less, he had precious people in that room, and he needed to protect them. He dashed back into the chamber to see Fugaku fleeing with Jiraiya and Sasuke on his heels. He saw his mother chasing Jiraiya and he saw the white plant creatures emerging from the floor in astounding numbers. He also saw spore-like growths coming from Akatsuchi's shoulders and Ao's back. Mifune was practically swallowed by the pale white growths. Making a split-second decision, Naruto stopped in the middle of the council chamber and pierced the ground with 5 chakra chains. He used the chakra chains to channel controlled amounts of lightning chakra into the shattered chamber. If he were right, and he was, then the plant creatures would be weak to lightning and fire due to their earth nature. As he ramped up the power, the lightning caused the emerging plant creatures to shrivel into prunes rapidly. However, the spores seemed to soak in the chakra. That was until Kurotsuchi got her act together and began decimating the growing spores with globs of lava. After the first wave of Zetsus were dealt with, the group was caught off guard when a bunch of samurai ran into the room. That wasn't the strange part though. The strange part was how the samurai attempted to kill Onoki. That was until Naruto's speed interfered and once the samurai was killed it reverted into a plant creature. Unfortunately, that was a mixed bag and some of the humans were genuinely confused when their supposed comrades attacked. This led to a stalemate where Naruto said fuck it. Samurai and plant creatures alike were impaled by a chakra chain apiece and lightning coursed through the chains. This tactic proved effective, and it left the humans unconscious and the plant creatures wilted. The shinobi present were all highly trained and adapted fast. They understood the tactic and followed along while assisting in the neutralization of the enemy. The sheer number of the attackers kept them occupied and Naruto felt like he needed to move on. They were distracting him for a reason and his mother and Kage were not present. Naruto knew that Daru was with him, but Naruto couldn't shake this ominous feeling. Fugaku had blown people away and enjoyed the sensation of the power coursing through his eyes. He knew there was a cooldown period, but thus far he was able to utilize the Rinnegan quite well. On top of that, this high-class battle was rapidly developing his prowess with the eyes. Perhaps that was why he was indulging in this battle with the Raikage rather than simply running away to follow the escape plan. Plus, he knew that the Raikage was much faster than him and running away wasn't a realistic option. Fugaku felt the cooldown on Shinra Tensei reset. It was instinctual. He just knew when he could use it again and it wasn't a moment too soon. The lightning-fast Raikage was mere meters away and glowing with lightning. He held out his right palm and blew the maniacal Raikage through the tower walls and out into the snowy environment. Fugaku took the reprieve to collect his bearings and assist Jiraiya and his son. Jiraiya was hard-pressed by the Red Death. Kushina was truly a formidable foe, and the dual blades kept him pressed and on the defensive. He had summoned Gamma Hero and before the chakra smoke even cleared, he was dispelled by numerous chakra chains piercing his chest. Jiraiya was using Rasengan like they were kunai to block the blows he couldn't dodge from the endless tide of sword strikes. If it wasn't swords, it was chakra chains and it had Jiraiya truly pressed and fixed on the defensive. Jiraiya was forced to harden his hair and use his Wild Lion's mane technique. Kushina's right katana got stuck in the mane of hair and Jiraiya took the opportunity to use Needle Hell, which hardened the Sanin's hair and shot it out like porcupine needles. This caused Kushina to free her right sword and form a barrier with her chakra chains to block the hardened hair senbone. Once the senbone shower ended and Jiraiya retracted his hair, he was forced to dodge a pressurized stream of hardened water that ripped through the walls of the tower like they were soggy toilet paper. Jiraiya gulped as he processed his next move. Kushina was going in for the kill and she was truly enraged. He hadn't seen her this upset since he got caught peeking on her and Minato. The memories of the beating alone sent shivers down Jiraiya's spine as he decided on his next attack. Kushina dropped the water jutsu and flung her left blade as if it were a throwing dagger at the airborne opponent. He formed a Rasengan and blocked the blade, but Jiraiya wasn't ready for a chakra chain to grab her previously discarded sword and lash out with it. Jiraiya cried out in pain and held his side as Kushina's katana, Benihime, found purchase. Sasuke had been fighting Daru and he was being pressed in Kenjutsu, speed and jutsu period. The Kumo shinobi's repertoire of jutsu was more than enough to counter Sasuke's fire and even his lava. That was his trump card, and it was countered by a storm release jutsu. It was clear to Sasuke that the opponent was better than him so long as he didn't use his Mangekyo Sharingan or the power of his biju. That being said, Sasuke decided he was going to use that power. I was struggling against Fugaku, but he wasn't the Raikage for no reason. He had caught on to the fact that there was a cooldown period in the gravity attack and I was getting used to being flung around. After the third time, I recognized that he could probably dodge. Thus, he was charging Fugaku once more. As Fugaku aimed his hand at I veered right in a 90-degree high-speed pivot and dodge out of the area of effect. A wicked grin appeared on the Raikage's face as he pivoted once more and launched a full-powered lightning lariat at the Hokage. Fugaku watched the Raikage coming at him in what appeared to be slow motion. Despite the slow motion, Fugaku knew that his body wasn't fast enough to dodge the impending attack and panic started to seep into his brain. Time seemed to slow as he watched the bent arm of the Raikage near his neck and his hands were going to barely make it in time. As his hands made contact, the words Pretapath appeared in his mind. I crashed into Fugaku with a lightning lariat, and he drove his arm downward. He felt the momentum of the attack take effect, but something was wrong. As I drove Fugaku into the ground, an explosion of lightning chakra and chunks of earth went out from the crater. However, I knew the attack didn't connect and he felt Fugaku latch onto his arm. I felt the rapid draining of his chakra and his lightning armor flickered out of existence in mere moments. Naruto ran out of the meeting room and created 100 clones to begin dealing with the plant creatures on a wider scale. He was enraged and his Hanyu blood was pumping. He felt his mother engaged in battle and he wanted to go assist her before getting to the Raikage. He was moving at full speed, and he saw Jiraiya dropping on top of his mother while holding an Odama Rasengan. The Rasengan was grinding away at the chakra chains and Naruto moved instinctively. After pushing off the ground, Naruto channeled an absurd amount of Raiten chakra to his right shoulder as he caught the unaware Sannin in the side. Jiraiya only saw a blue blur at the last moment before a lightning explosion crashed through him and sent him flying through every wall of the tower and out into the snowy environment. There was a boom that echoed across the mountains as Jiraiya's unconscious body tore into the hard and frozen earth of Iron Country. He stopped quickly to check in on his mother's condition before he rapidly moved on to find the Raikage. Mikoto had followed Kushina out of the room, but she had been forced to deal with a number of the plant creatures and multiple creatures were impersonating samurai. Mikoto didn't care, she disabled them indiscriminately as she waltzed through them with a lightning-covered blade. The brief distraction only took 2 minutes, but she could feel the battle raging and she could feel her son's tainted chakra. Mikoto appeared in the middle of the fight and stopped a downward slash from Sasuke who was encased in a one-tailed biju cloak. The filters over the eye slits on her mask stopped his Sharingan from detecting her own, but she felt the buildup of chakra behind Sasuke's eyes, and she ducked out as black flames roared out of his eye sockets. She knew that technique left the user's vision temporarily blurry, so she pushed his sword aside and lashed out with a seal tag that she placed on his forehead. Sasuke was frustrated that his kill was denied by a new adversary and that caused him to lash out with the flames of Amaterasu. He couldn't believe the woman dodged and before he could react, he was sent off kilter by the weight of his sword. The next thing he knew, his world went dark as a sealing tag was placed on his forehead. The abrupt disruption of the vast quantities of chakra jarred his consciousness and left him in a crumpled heap on the snowy floor. Fugaku enjoyed the surge of power from absorbing the Raikage's chakra. This new ability was astounding and Fugaku was drunk on the power of the Rinnegan. He transitioned his grip into a chokehold and he was grinning madly as he held the life of a powerful man in his hands. He felt the sudden disruption of his son's biju chakra and he held out his hand. He whispered, "Banshu Tenin," and pulled his son's unconscious body towards him. He saw Jiraiya fly into a hill in the distance and he could tell that the Sannin was incapacitated. He also saw the blue blur that was Naruto in his lightning armor appear through the shattered hole in the outer wall of the tower. Fugaku cast a wicked grin in Naruto's direction as his chakra rod pierced the Raikage's heart through his back. The Raikage was incapacitated in a state of chakra shock from his chakra being absorbed and Fugaku's right hand was still draining his chakra. Thus, when the left hand of Fugaku pierced Ai's back, there was nothing he could do about it. Fugaku dropped the dying Raikage and caught his son's body. The following explosion of chakra shocked him, but it was time for him to go. Naruto followed the destructive trail Jiraiya's body created through the tower walls and paused on the precipice to take in his environment. His eyes rapidly absorbed the battle between Sasuke, Daru and Mikoto that he just bypassed. It looked as though Mikoto just finished the fight with a well-placed suppression tag. As he looked out onto the courtyard in front of the tower, and he froze when he processed what he saw. Fugaku was hovering over Ai and holding him around the neck with his left hand. Naruto instantly wondered what happened to the lightning armor that always coated and protected his father figure. He couldn't wonder long because he saw Fugaku stabbing through Ai's body from behind with a black rod. Naruto's heightened synapses processed it all in slow motion and his body moved instinctively. He could close the 100-meter distance in mere seconds. He could get there. When the chakra rod pierced Ai's back, Naruto's body went into a state of shock and denial. He stumbled mid-stride and froze as he watched the scene with widened eyes. His mind, enhanced by the Raiten chakra, raced 100 miles a minute and he went through the stages of grief in mere seconds. Denial, there was no way the man that raised and trained him could lose to a guy like Fugaku. Anger, his body released all limiters and flooded his form with more chakra than he had ever wielded it once before. The wild nature of his chakra and the vast quantities of it pulled naturally on the strings of the environment and bent it to his subconscious will. Bargaining, Naruto thought that if he got Ai to a hospital instantly he would be able to save him. His body restarted its movement mid-stumble and he flashed to Ai in a blur of blue that left a string of after-images. He lashed out at Fugaku who had just caught his son out of the air and the attack should have been faster than the man could handle. Depression, Fugaku and Sasuke disappeared in a puff of chakra smoke and Naruto plowed through the smoke and his momentum crashed to the ground in a tremendous explosion of chakra. Within seconds, as if drawn by Naruto's depression, the sky darkened and a blizzard full of hail and sleet fell onto the barren, snow-covered ground. The acceptance stage came at the price of Naruto venting his rage and sadness simultaneously. He slid to his knees over the limp form of his father figure and shielded his body from the sleet and hail. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the stormy skies as Naruto removed the chakra rod from Ai's chest. Naruto's tears poured out of his eyes and immediately evaporated amidst that insane chakra pressure of the cloak of demonic yokai that was clinging to Naruto's body. In desperation, Naruto pumped his chakra into Ai's system. He begged Hikari to guide it and help it heal his papa. He begged and couldn't hear the tender soothing of Hikari's voice through the maelstrom that filled the mental link. He remained bent on his knees for an untold amount of time as his rampant emotions poured out into the environment. The storm's intensity increased, and snowy tornadoes began forming in the sky while lightning lashed out with unchallenged impunity across the snowy lands of Iron Country. Kushina had followed Naruto out of the hole in the tower's wall and she had seen Ai fall. She had fallen to her knees in a state of shock and denial as she processed the loss of the second man she ever loved. Her hands covered her mouth and tears poured out freely as she remained on the precipice of the tower's edge that looked out over the courtyard. The only thing that broke her out of her sadness was the sight of her son losing control. Her motherly instincts pulled her up onto shaky legs and she went to comfort her son. She approached him slowly and deliberately and she could sense the others coming out of the tower as they gawked at the insane winter storm. She closed the distance to him in less than a minute, but she could get no closer due to the chakra pressure of his yokai cloak that was mixing with out-of-control natural energy. She fell to her knees and began speaking to him. Sochi, 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 her pleading fell on deafened ears that couldn't hear anything other than the remorse that consumed her son. Sochi, please. Kushina whimpered in a distressed tone. Naruto's head snapped up and slitted red eyes looked into the imploring and wet eyes of his mother as frozen rain, sleet and hail pelted the ground around them. His eyes wavered with rampant emotions and implored the woman for help. Kushina slowly extended her chakra chains that they began wrapping around him tenderly. As the chakra pressure faded, Naruto's hearing cleared from a muted hum into a high-pitched ring as if he were recovering from a close encounter with an explosive tag. Finally, his mother's words reached him, and tears fell as the chakra pressure faded. Sochi, please calm down. Please Sochi. We need you. Kushina implored through her own sobs as his eyes remained fixed on the unmoving form of Ai. These words broke Naruto out of his trance as he realized that his mother needed him. His family needed him. Hikari needed him. With a deep, raspy breath, Naruto shook off and suppressed his raging emotions. Now wasn't the proper time for him to indulge in them. He saw everyone that survived the attack on the summit looking down at the dead body of Ai that had a single wound bleeding out of his chest where the chakra rod had penetrated. Naruto reverently bent down and collected Ai's body into his arms while the impromptu storm started fading as he regained controls of his emotions. He looked up and saw that despite some wounds, I was the only fatality among the shinobi. Even Mifune was there, And it looked like the samurai general didn't appreciate the involuntary trip through the walls of his own tower. Naruto cleared his throat and looked to Daru. Daru, I entrust Raikage-sama's body to you. I will summon Virginia and she will fly you back. Inform the council that there will be a meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Call for a full assembly at noon. I need to remain here with our allies and figure out the next steps. Daru took a knee and bowed his head. Hi, Raikage-sama. The words were saturated with respect and carried the solemnity that honored the situation. Naruto struggled to keep his mind clear and thoughts productive as he looked to Mifune. Mifune Dono, is there another location where we may discuss our next actions? I believe that we have much to discuss. Mifune nodded with a sad and slight frown on his face. Yes, Raikage Dono. We have much to discuss. May I be the one to schedule the audience with the daimyo? They will need to be notified of such egregious acts and I am sure we will have their blessings for war. Naruto nodded and Onoki spoke. Young man, you have my condolences, and you have my support should you need it. Kushina broke decorum and hugged Naruto after he handed Ai's body off to Daru. The two remained wrapped up in a firm hug for quite a while and everyone just remained in a reverent silence. The silence was broken by Kushina. Sochi, we need to recover Jiraiya. He will know what we are up against. Naruto's eyes flashed red, and he looked to Nagato and Mikado. Go and collect him. He is still unconscious. Seal every chakra point he has and get him in a stasis scroll. Bring him to me and I am going to let Anko play. Naruto looked to Onoki and Ao. Please contact your nations and check in with them. If they made such a brazen move here and they didn't have any of the core members of the Akatski, I am worried about our nations. Onoki nodded. That is wise thinking, young Raikage. It will be done. Ao followed suit. I agree, Mifune Dono. Where will we reconvene this meeting? I believe urgency dictates that we complete our business this day, no matter how late into the night it takes us. After completing their tasks, everyone met and ironed out the details of the alliance. Unfortunately, more problems plagued the new alliance. Kirigakure was infiltrated by the white plant creatures and the Akatski hit Kirigakure hard. Zabuza was grievously wounded in defense of Kiri and the casualties have yet to be totaled. It was confirmed that the Akatski retreated, but the damage to Kiri was substantial enough to take them out of the fight for the most part. Despite losing a strong ally, the alliance did secure a promise of Kiri's fleet. Control over the elemental ocean would be the strength of the alliance and Kiri would be able to provide that. Hanzo immediately replied that Ame would fully commit alongside Kumo, and the borders of Ame were already further strengthened. Iwa would commit 1,500 shinobi but the rest were needed for the defense and recovery of Iwa. Uzushio was all in and Kumo was all in. On that night, the tiding bells of war rang across the elemental nations. Kumo General Assembly, noon the following day. The return to Kumo was difficult for Naruto to swallow. Daru had returned the previous night and the city was already in high tensions from the rumors spreading. Naruto arrived in a blue flash in the Raikage Tower with Kushina, Nagato, and Mikado. Naruto was immediately enveloped in a passionate hug by B and the busy Raikage Tower froze as Naruto appeared within the Raikage Tower. Naruto returned the embrace by B and let his emotions show for this brief instant before he recomposed himself and focused on the tasks at hand. Naruto hardened his heart and stifled his emotions as he felt the rampant negative emotions of the shinobi in the tower. A stoic nod and greeting from the Tenchi no Raijin revitalized the distressed shinobi and they returned to their tasks. Naruto immediately went to the council chambers, and he was unanimously approved as the Godime Raikage. Kirinji was present and immediately approved the nomination. Mei was present and everyone's hearts wrenched in sorrow as she broke down in sobs throughout the meeting. Naruto informed the council of what transpired, and they spent 2 hours assigning initial tasks for the war effort. At noon, Naruto followed the Kumo elders out onto the balcony of the Raikage Tower that overlooked the mountain. He was flanked by Kirinji, B, Yugito, Mei, the Divine Bolts in their ceremonial garb, the council in the fancy kimonos and the Uzumaki clan behind him. The Eagles scattered to the allied nations and provided rapid transport for a number of people that were close to Naruto. All non-essential shinobi missions were cancelled, and the shinobi were formed up in front of the tower. The rapidly growing civilian population of Kumo formed up behind the shinobi and looked up at the tower reverently. Speakers and screens were erected to make it easier for people to watch the ceremony. A complete silence encompassed the main mountain of Kumagakure as the inauguration ceremony began. Kirinji led the ceremony and opened with his address. People of Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni, I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today. This ceremony was always meant to be a joyous occasion that would represent Kumo moving forward into a brighter future. Alas, that joy was robbed by the greedy and evil hands of the Hokage of Konohagakure. It is with a heavy heart that I must inform you that I, the lightning beast of Kumo, the Yondaime Raikage of Iwagakure, was killed in battle yesterday during the Kage summit. Kyuubi paused here and let the information settle over the stunned crowd. People began weeping and shinobi began shifting in agitation at the confirmation that their honored Raikage was indeed dead. Kyuubi raised a hand and silence, only penetrated by the stifled sobs of the audience, fell back over the mountain. Fugaku Uchiha, the Hokage of Konoha, launched an unprovoked attack on four Kages and the samurai general of Iron Country. Simultaneously, his organization, the Akatski, launched an attack on our allies in Kirigakure. Yesterday was a dark day that will go down in history as the start of the Fourth Great Shinobi War. Another pause for people to settle down and accept the information dump. Kyuubi continued once more with the power and elegance that befit the title of daimyo. In these turbulent times, a new leader must arise. This is a leader that you all know and respect. This is a leader that carries my full confidence and my full authority to wield the might of Iwagakure and the samurai forces of Kaminari no Kuni. This leader came to our lands when he was a young boy, and I am confident in saying that he has touched each and every one of your lives in some way. Amidst the darkness and chaotic turbulence, a ray of light descends from the skies. Some call him an angel and yet others call him a leader of the divine. Most of you know who I refer to already, so, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to your god Raikage, the Tenchi no Raijin, the leader of the divine bolts, the honorary son and apprentice of the Yondaime Raikage. I give you Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto stepped forward and donned the Raikage's robes and knelt down as Kyuubi placed the Raikage hat on his head. Naruto's family and wives watched on in pride as Naruto assumed the mantle of the Raikage. Kushina shed tears of pride for her son. Mei shed tears of reverent joy for her son-in-law. Hikari watched on with her hand held over her heart as she could feel how much this moment meant to Naruto. She could also feel how sincerely he wished that it was I placing the Raikage hat on his head. Naruto rose and strode forward to the rail of the balcony. His visage was strong, and his voice was inspiring as he spoke. I always envisioned that I would be the one placing this hat on my head. He was a great man, a father, a sensei, a master, a leader and a role model to me. I will always remember the Yondaime Raikage, as a legendary hero of Iwagakure that led Kumo and the elemental nations into a new age. May you rest in peace, Pops. Naruto stopped here as his voice cracked and he wiped away a few tears. It was a gut-wrenching moment and it hit the audience hard. Stifled sobs gave way to open wailing and gnashing of teeth as everyone processed their grief differently. I had done so much for the land and village and so many lives were touched and blessed by his rule. Naruto took enough time to temper his emotions and smooth out his tone before he continued in a firm voice. Do not be afraid. That is my message for you today. Do not be afraid. The desperate actions of an evil man have united the elemental nations against a common enemy. Our enemy can no longer hide behind anonymity. Our enemy can no longer slink around in the shadows. Our enemy will answer for their evil deeds. I swear to you here today that I will bring Konoha no Sato to heel. We are not alone in this venture. In their greed, Konoha has lashed out against each of our allies, and we stand united against them. I ask my shinobi to train hard and prepare for the fights to come. I ask my civilians to understand that some sacrifices will need to be made. I ask for your assistance and understanding in this effort. I ask my daimyo to give me guidance and support as we figure our way through this. I ask each and every one of you to work as a team and a united nation to stamp out the threat to our lands. The audience could no longer be contained as Naruto undid his transformation and flared his aura for the whole of Kumo to feel. He did his best to inspire his people and stifle their worries. Overall, it was a great success. Yes, very nice. Naruto motivated his people to move forward into a turbulent and uncertain future. Konoha's council reaction: fun times ahead. Fugaku returned to Konoha still drunk on the power of the Rinnegan. He couldn't believe how good it felt to suck the chakra out of the Raikage. One hold, one chakra rod and the Raikage was at his mercy. It was such an exhilarating thought, and it was a brief, yet exhilarating, fight. He needed more fights like that to unlock the deeper depths of the Rinnegan. He had already worked out a plan with Zetsu, who reported the preemptive attack on Kirigakure was a success. That was two of the so-called greats out of the way and the stage was set for Konoha to square off against Kumo. Now he just needed to rally the council to his cause. This was probably going to be his hardest task yet. On that front, Zetsu brought in some good information. His clone saw the boy freak out after I was killed. He saw the demonic transformation and witnessed the flare of chakra. He may have reported that it wasn't the Kyuubi's chakra, and he only had 5 tails, but that was still enough to galvanize support. The fire daimyo was more than a little mad at him, but he would be dealt with soon enough. Fugaku shivered at the thought of Zetsu devouring the body of the fire daimyo and impersonating him as he walked into the council chambers. Fugaku felt the nervous anticipation of the council. The nervous energy was palpable, and he knew that he would be walking a tightrope for this one. He expected a couple clans to try to ditch ship, but it would only take one clan to make an example. Fugaku was pleased to see that Mabuki seemed to have rallied the civilian council already. At least the damnable woman was good for something. Alright, I am sure you have heard rumors about the Kage Summit. Let's get that issue settled, then I will give a full report. Fugaku proceeded to tell his version of the Kage Summit, including Naruto's supposed manipulation of Mifune and the loss of Jiraiya. The Shinobi Council was more than a little nervous and quite agitated, while the civilian council was baying for the demon's blood. Hiruzen stood up and put a damper on the mood and message Fugaku said, "So, let me get this straight. You didn't like the ruling that was decided, so you initiated hostilities against an alliance of half the elemental nations. Not only that, but you killed the Raikage. I hope you have a good reason for this, Fugaku, because you are going to cost Konoha shinobi and citizens their weight in blood." Fugaku made a lazy hand gesture, and Hiruzen was flanked by two Anbu that had their tantos at his neck. Fugaku channeled chakra to his Rinnegan eyes and let them show to the council. "I am the leader of this village now, Hiruzen. I have attained the Rinnegan. I have been assigned the task of collecting the biju, and I will place the elemental nations under Konoha's rule. In order to do this, I formed the Akatski and used them to acquire 5 of the 9 biju. I have raised Konoha Station, and I will bring Kumo to heel. Anbu, please escort Sarutobi to Anbu Holding." The clan heads stood up in protest to this decision, while the civilian council watched on stunned. More Anbu appeared behind the clan heads, but they didn't draw their blades. Finally, Hyashi Hyuga was able to speak clearly. "Hokage-sama, I would like to know why you are incarcerating Sandaime-sama." Fugaku scrutinized the clan council with his Rinnegan eyes, "Because I have no doubt that he will attempt to undermine my efforts. Understand this, Konoha is now in a state of war. As such, I am the sole authority within this village. I will no longer tolerate dissent." Shikaku Nara scrutinized the Hokage with narrowed eyes. This was all much too troublesome for him to deal with. The Hokage just admitted that he authorized acts of terrorism and aggression on multiple villages. That being said, there was a more important question that needed to be asked. For what purpose are we gathering the biju? He kept his tone cautious and calculatedly lazy. Fugaku turned to the Nara clan head. "In order to end all wars, we will collect the biju and use them to power a genjutsu. This genjutsu will pacify the other nations and ensure that Konoha rules over the elemental nations." Shikaku groaned internally and kept his external features schooled before responding. "And what genjutsu is it? How will it work?" "Forgive me, Hokage-sama, but that sounds difficult to believe." Fugaku maintained eye contact with Shikaku. "You do not need to worry about the details. Believe in your leader and follow my orders." Sume's instincts were flaring out of control, and she knew that she should keep her mouth shut. However, she was a fiercely loyal person, and the Sandaime held her trust and loyalty. "Hokage-sama, please forgive Sandaime-sama. It would demoralize many people and shinobi should he be incarcerated for merely questioning your actions." Kuza also felt the need to play this carefully. "I agree, Hokage-sama. If you do not wish to deal with him, then I move to remove him from his council seat so that he may enjoy a well-earned retirement." Fugaku knew that was likely the better option. He could have root-watched the old monkey and stop him from spreading dissent. He made a motion with his hand and the two Anbu stood down. He looked firmly at Hiruzen and spoke sternly. "Very well, Hiruzen, you are removed from your position as head of Clan Sarutobi. You are confined to your clan compound until I say otherwise. Should you leave your compound or attempt to sow dissent," Fugaku let the threat hang in the air for a couple seconds. "Let's just say I won't be so forgiving next time." Hiruzen bowed silently and walked with his head held high out of the council chambers. It left the council in a state of quiet discontent, and many people felt fear settling into the cores of their beings. The rest of the meeting was the council listening to the mandates and orders of Fugaku. Konoha was going to war whether they liked it or not. Daimyo Conference. 1 week after summit, the many daimyo of the elemental nations and their advisors came together to attend an emergency summons. Luckily for the daimyo, this was to be an electronic conference. Nobody felt safe traveling when war was in the air. Thus, 12 daimyo appeared on the screens that were assembled, while their own images were projected to their fellow daimyo. There were 5 more screens added that contained the visages of the 5 Kages that were involved in the dispute. Kirinji kicked off the conference. "My fellow daimyo and respected Kage, I asked you here today to explain what has happened recently and to give our reasoning behind the war that will soon ravage our lands." Kenji, played by Zetsu, broke into the pause. the war that your people instigated by stealing a legendary clan and historical ally of the Leaf and Fire Country. Suchaimaru stepped in here. Enough of that, Kenji. We have received and reviewed the testimony of Mifune, Lord of Iron Country. We know what transpired during the Cage Summit, and we know that Konoha has attacked 4 of the Great Five. Kirinji stepped in here. It is as Suchaimaru Dono says. The Uzumaki clan left Konoha and Fire Country of its own volition after they suffered unjust treatment by the Hokage and Konohagakure as a whole. Regardless, the reason for this war was the unprovoked attack on the Raikage, Tsuchikage, Mizukage and Uzukage by the Hokage of Konohagakure during official proceedings. This resulted in the death of the Yondaime Raikage. As such, Kumagakure declares war against Konohagakure with the full blessing of myself and the people of Kaminari no Kuni. The daimyo stirred and waited for Kenji's response. If that is how you wish to play it, then I will order my samurai to protect my lands. I, Suchaimaru, daimyo of Earth Country, offer my support to Kaminari no Kuni. I, Uzumaki Kushina, daimyo of Whirlpool Country and Uzukage of Uzushiagakure, offer my support to Kaminari no Kuni, Kushina said stoically while glaring into the screen. I, Hattori Hanzo, Kage and daimyo of Rain Country, offer my support to Kaminari no Kuni, Hanzo said stoically. Fugaku barged in here. Then you will all fall to the might of Konohagakure. I have attained the eyes of God. Should you resist me, then death awaits the people of your nations. This earned an uproar from the daimyo. Each of them petitioned Kenji to remove Fugaku from his post and try him in an international court. This plea fell on deaf ears because Zetsu had assumed the identity of the daimyo. The clone of the plant creature hated dealing with these people and he declared his backing for Fugaku. The meeting concluded with most of the elemental nations abstaining from the war so long as it did not affect their lands. Before the meeting ended, Naruto spoke for the first time and silence was all that returned from each of the daimyo. Fugaku Uchiha, you are a coward hiding in the shadows. Before this war is over, I will send you and every other Uchiha to the pits of Yami. Alright guys, that's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. As always, the rest of the story is already out over on Patreon. Link to that will be in the description. Anyways, until next time, peace.